Chapter 432 Grasping the Taiyang Rule, Subscription Requested. _2 The Milky Way star region needs stable trade channels for development, especially on the main star. Various merchants must be stationed. And the top choice for these merchants, naturally, are those indigenous different species within the star domain, all of which have their own capabilities and techniques, such as the flower god wine of the floral deity race. It is quite famous in the nearby dozens of star domains. Originally, to invite these alien tribes to station themselves, something had to be offered first, such as promises of rent-free. But before they could propose these offers, the alien tribes actively cooperated, not daring to set any conditions. After the Star Lord's purge, how could those alien races dare to disobey? Hongbi with green eyes, do not find anything unexpected. The Chiquan Star Lord had been even more domineering than Lin Yuan back in the day. Those indigenous alien tribes had to be obedient in order to survive. However, a look passed between Hongbi and the green-eyed being, both 8th-rank alien races, and still a shock shone deep in their eyes. What shocked them was not the exceedingly compliant alien races, but Lin Yuan's strength. In order to assist Lin Yuan in controlling the Milky Way star region as much as possible, they had made dozens of plans before coming here. Scheming to win people over one by one, promising significant benefits, all with the aim of quickly seizing control of the Milky Way star region. But now, none of the plans they formulated were needed. Lin Yuan, with his absolute strength, terrified those alien races. Even though these two 8th-rank alien races had long known about Lin Yuan's inner world, with a radius of 700,000 li, and combat power almost reaching the peak of the 8th layer, however, just having combat power at the peak of the 8th layer doesn't mean you can freely slaughter those 8th-rank alien races. 8th-rank alien races are not fools. Knowing they can't win, why would they willingly stay to be killed? Lin Yuan easily retained those 8th-rank alien races, relying not only on combat power, but also on a strength that was nearly flawless in all aspects. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had gone by. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged, slowly perfecting his martial path evolutionary path. Suddenly, everyone on the Milky Way main star felt a scorching surge as if a great sun had descended. Chun Bo and Jiao Li's expressions changed slightly. They looked toward the source of this disturbance, which was at the palace where the Galaxy Master cultivated. In the void, light and heat began to fill the space, as if a great sun had fallen to the ground, and that palace seemed to have turned into a miniature sun. It's the manifestation of rule fluctuations, the fire system rules taking shape. Hongbi and the green-eyed being were excited. They knew all too well what this scene meant. Fire system rule manifestation? Could it be the Star Lord has penetrated some kind of fire system rule? Chun Bo and Jiao Li's eyes widened. Penetrating any kind of rule, even just a regular one, is a domain only peak 8th layer powerhouses could touch. Lin Yuan had entered the 8th layer not long ago, and although his combat power was not inferior to those at the peak, combat power and realm are two different things. Lin Yuan possesses combat power at the peak of the 8th layer, possibly due to an abnormal evolutionary path he cultivated, a powerful secret technique he mastered, or some other fortuitous encounter. But penetrating some kind of rule can only rely on oneself. The fact that the Galaxy Master penetrated some kind of fire system rule indicates that he has fully mastered this power. The Star Lord, Hongbi and the green-eyed being fell silent, having spent a great deal of time in Lin Yuan's inner world. They are aware that the Galaxy Master's understanding of the space rules has reached an incredibly deep level, but now Lin Yuan has quietly penetrated some kind of fire system rule? Could it be that there is life in this universe that can leap from a day to 100 or 1,000 years? Deep within the palace, Lin Yuan opened his eyes, a look of satisfaction on his face. Taiyang rule. Lin Yuan looked up slightly. Endless light and heat from all directions converged toward him, forming a sun seal the size of a thumb, which finally merged into Lin Yuan's forehead and vanished from sight. I didn't expect to penetrate the Taiyang rule so unconsciously. Lin Yuan's mind was filled with pleasure. He had never deliberately comprehended the Taiyang rule. It was only during the refinement of the martial path evolutionary path that the Taiyang rule and the Taiyin rule were being continuously understood more deeply. The martial path evolutionary path that Lin Yuan followed was structured upon Taiyin, Taiyang, and Taiji as the framework. In its perfection, the understanding of the Taiyang and Taiyin rules advanced as if rising with the tide. This early comprehension of the Taiyang rule is also related to the Red Kuan lineage incorporating many fire system evolution paths. Lin Yuan thought to himself. As the 13th peak master of the Red Kuan lineage, Lin Yuan naturally had a thorough understanding of the evolution paths his family had amassed. The Red Kuan lineage was most skilled in the fire and space rules after all. The Star Lord, Chikuan Star Lord, had walked these two paths. Hence, among the many evolution paths they had collected, those based on fire and space were dominant. As a result, Lin Yuan's understanding of the Taiyang rule was much superior to that of the Taiyin rule, and now he had even comprehended the Taiyang rule first. The Taiyang rule is the sublimated rule of the fire system, symbolizing endless light and heat. The formidable 8th rank Wanyang Star Lord from the Human Civilization Alliance was rooted in the Taiyang rule, forging her invincible path among the Eights. Her signature move Wanyang Same Heaven, Lin Yuan remembered it well and had sublimated it to create a series of Taiyang rule-based techniques. With the Taiyang rule comprehended, my combat power and the perfection of the martial path evolutionary path have both greatly advanced. Lin Yuan appeared satisfied. Moreover, my path involves the fusion of both the Taiyang and Taiyin rules. Having understood the Taiyang rule, I am not far from fully grasping the Taiyin rule. Lin Yuan silently contemplated. The so-called way of Taiji inherently complements Yin and Yang. As Taiyang strengthens, it compensates for Taiyin, and as Taiyin fortifies, it reimburses Taiyang. This compensation is not just in power, but extends to the comprehension of rules as well. It's just that, even after fully grasping both the Taiyang and Taiyin rules, comprehending the complete space rules still seems an indefinitely long way off. Lin Yuan then turned his contemplation to the space rules. The core space models he had comprehended were still slightly over 2,000 in variety. According to human civilization's interpretation of the space rules, comprehending 7,782 core space models equates to mastering the space rules. But to comprehend these 7,782 core space models is exceedingly difficult. As a foundational rule, they almost represent the essence of the universe. Even the powerful Chikuan Star Lord had not yet fully grasped the core space models nor mastered the space rules. Keep in mind, the Chikuan Star Lord is a starry sky wanderer Kuan, a darling of the cosmic space origin source. If even he has not comprehended it, one can imagine the difficulty involved. Take it slowly. I am still very young and have plenty of time to contemplate. Lin Yuan reined in his thoughts. With his against heaven's understanding, he had rarely encountered any significant bottlenecks on the path of rule comprehension. Even with something as vast as the space rules, given time he will eventually grasp them. If not for the fact that his current realm was not high, Lin Yuan would even consider contemplating the rule of time. But if I were to comprehend the Taiyin rule and then merge it with the Taiyang rule, what would it become? Lin Yuan frowned slightly. Fusion with a foundational rule, such as space, time, or life, along with some ordinary rule, is one of the prerequisites for advancing from the 8th to the 9th rank. However, both the Taiyin and Taiyang rules are not foundational rules. If they were to be fused, what would be formed? The Taiji rule? Until now, Lin Yuan had never heard of a Taiji rule. Taiji is merely Lin Yuan's own definition for what might result from the fusion of Taiyin and Taiyang. The fusion of Taiyang and Taiyin, in an exact proportion, neither more nor less, could potentially result in the ultimate Taiji. Without the complete comprehension of the Taiyin and Taiyang rules, their fusion remains incomplete and the rule contact is not comprehensive, so it seems that no change has occurred. Thinking about these things now is meaningless. It's better to wait until the Taiyin rule is fully understood. Lin Yuan closed his eyes and resumed his cultivation. With the complete Taiyang rule to supplement him, Lin Yuan's comprehension of the Taiyin rule accelerated significantly. While Lin Yuan was immersed in cultivation, the Milky Way star region was rapidly developing. Outside the Milky Way main star, within the cosmic starry sky, two figures appeared silently. The Milky Way star region's main star. The two figures stood side by side, a man and a woman, gazing down at the massive planet below. Chapter 433 Grey Gourd, please subscribe. The man and woman both had formidable presences. They were 8th rank evolvers. The man was tall, with pupils of a sky blue color, obviously of extraordinary bloodline. The woman wore a light white robe, exuding a profound air, with silver patterns faintly visible on her forehead. This planet was originally a strategic planet of the Shadow Tribe, controlling this star domain from here. But now, it has become the main star of our human civilization. The male evolver exclaimed in admiration. To be precise, it's the main star of the Milky Way star region. That galaxy master, with his immense wealth, directly upgraded this planet to a grade B planet. The female evolver said with a smile. It was a well-known fact that the galaxy master was fabulously wealthy. After all, 100,000 cubic universe crystals was no small sum, a peak of the 8th rank evolver could not amass it. If Lin Yuan wasn't a top genius of human civilization, an 8th rank evolver below the age of 100, it wouldn't be possible for him to have more than 100,000 cubic universe crystals even with the celebration of advancing to the 8th rank. Those major powers and lone evolvers were not foolish. If Lin Yuan were just an ordinary evolver, they probably wouldn't even celebrate, even out of respect for the Chiquan Star Lord. At most they would give a token gesture. How could they possibly bleed wealth in their gifts? This Galaxy Master is indeed extraordinary, not only in his financial strength but also in power. Shortly after taking office, he purged this star domain of special life forms and alien lone walkers, staining his hands with the blood of at least 6 or 7 members of the 8th rank alien race. Speaking to this point, the male evolver's face showed some hesitation. I don't know if he would be willing to accept our allegiance. Besides, this Galaxy Master is very young, not yet 100 years old. If the two of us take the initiative to follow him, the male evolver voiced his true thoughts. In the 10,000 races of the cosmic starry sky, it's quite normal for the weak to follow the strong. But both of them were several tens of thousands of years old, to follow a youngster who was not yet 100 years old? In the Human Civilization Alliance or even among other groups, once a decision to follow is made, one is completely bound to the leader. No matter what happens in the future, the connection can't be cut. Lu Ran, you care too much about face and thus you miss out on opportunities. The female evolver beside him shook her head slightly. The Galaxy Master is too young right now, which makes it the perfect time for us to follow him. Otherwise, with the Galaxy Master's cultivation speed, by the time he's a few thousand or tens of thousands of years old, invincible at the 8th rank. Or even a 9th rank evolver, by then he probably won't accept followers. By following him now, while others are still hesitant, we'll not only gain benefits but will at least have a higher status than those who follow later. The female evolver thought comprehensively. Face. Only the weak care about their face. You're right. The male evolver nodded slightly upon hearing this. He knew well the difference between offering timely aid and adding flowers to the brocade. Now the Galaxy Master had just newly advanced to the 8th rank and had just taken over a star domain. Their following him at this time could actually be of help. It was somewhat like providing timely help during a crisis. By becoming followers, we must obey the Galaxy Master's orders. Otherwise, even if the Galaxy Master kills us, the 3 goddesses will not intervene. The male evolver stated. To obtain something, one must give something. It's delusional to expect benefits without risks. The female evolver headed straight toward the Milky Way main star. Seeing this, the male evolver immediately followed. The two rapidly descended onto the star platform of the Milky Way main star. Boom boom boom. The planetary defense system of the Milky Way main star emitted vast fluctuations, enveloping them. A grade B planet's defense system was enough to suppress most 8th layer powerhouses in an instant. You two 8th rank members, what brings you here? An alien with dark red skin flew out. He examined them cautiously. 8th rank. The two 8th rank man and woman were shocked internally. They had originally thought they would be the first to follow the Galaxy Master. To their surprise, there were already other 8th rank individuals who had followed, and this member was from a different species? We've long heard of the great reputation of the Galaxy Master, and we've come specifically to pay him a visit. The female 8th ranker immediately declared their intent. A visit to the Star Lord? The two of you? After pondering for a moment, the red-skinned alien said, I'll go inquire with the Star Lord. To request an audience with the Star Lord required the consent of the Star Lord himself. The red-skinned alien was not in a position to decide. A moment later, looking at the two, Hongpi nodded and said, The Star Lord has agreed. Follow me. Shortly after, the male and female evolvers entered the palace. Lin Yuan was clad in green 8th rank armor, sitting cross-legged, engrossed in pondering the space rule model. Upon their entrance, he slowly opened his eyes. It was as if the rising sun had appeared. Lu Ran and Ruan Wei felt a dryness in their mouths and immediately said with utmost respect, We've come to see the Galaxy Master. Lu Ran, Ruan Wei. Lin Yuan spoke calmly. All 8th rank evolvers from the Human Civilization Alliance were registered, and with Lin Yuan's memory he naturally remembered them clearly. The pair before him had stepped into the 8th rank several thousand years ago. After fulfilling their duty of guarding a star domain, they had actively relinquished their roles to journey through the universe. Guarding a star domain and becoming a Star Lord was certainly a lucrative role, but it was also like being confined within drawn boundaries. A Star Lord must remain in their star domain, or have an avatar or the original body guarding it. They could not leave, which some evolvers found hard to accept, so they do not always remain as Star Lords. We've heard that the Galaxy Master, by his own hand, cleared the star domain of all unruly different species, and we admire that, hence we have come specially to follow. Chapter 434 Grey Gourd, please subscribe. _2 The female evolver spoke softly. Follow me? Lin Yuan's expression remained unchanged. As a student of Qikuan Star-Lord, he already had many followers. What do you want? Lin Yuan asked directly. Once the decision to follow was made, Lin Yuan would control their fate, and not even the three goddesses could intervene. Thus, followers must have their own desires. When Heyu Mo of the Heyu family decided to follow the Qikuan Star-Lord, his request was to establish a family legacy. That's why there was a time when the Heyu family shone brilliantly in the Qikuan Star domain. After stepping into the 8th layer, we deeply feel the hardship of cultivation, so in the future, if Star-Lord can step into the 9th layer, just giving us some guidance would suffice, Lu Ran said respectfully. Although the virtual world of human civilization contains some cultivation experiences of 9th rank evolvers, those are personal experiences of 9th rank evolvers which don't offer much help to them. But how difficult is it to receive personal guidance from a 9th rank evolver? No problem, Lin Yuan consented in just a moment's thought. Simply giving some guidance couldn't be easier. Now that he had begun to take charge of the Milky Way star region, he urgently needed a large number of subordinates, and 2 8th rank evolvers could save him a lot of trouble. Moreover, Lu Ran and Ruan Wei had clear backgrounds and were both human evolvers. They could be somewhat trusted, so Lin Yuan agreed to take them in directly. Thank you, Star-Lord. Lu Ran and Ruan Wei relaxed upon hearing this. They originally thought that being under the Milky Way Star-Lord wouldn't be an issue, but when they met Lin Yuan, they realized they had underestimated the Star-Lord whose insight into the rules far exceeded their imaginations. Merely sitting there and looking at them made their hearts tremble. So once again they doubted themselves until Lin Yuan nodded in agreement and they could let go of their concerns. You both stay on the main star for now, and if there's anything that needs to be done later, you can take care of it. You won't be doing it for nothing, Lin Yuan said. In fact, one could exploit followers as much as possible, but Lin Yuan didn't wish to do that. A star domain, if developed well, can generate vast benefits. Lin Yuan was willing to share some of that. Qikuan main star. 13 peaks. The Taiyang divine spirit was sitting cross-legged deep in the hall. With Lin Yuan's understanding of the Taiyang rule, the presence of the Taiyang divine spirit also soared. The Taiyin primordial spirit, originally condensed by Lin Yuan from the power of Taiyang, was closely related to the Taiyang rule. His comprehension of the Taiyang rule was clearly beneficial to the elevation of the Taiyang divine spirit. My current strength. A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face as the world of flames within him began to expand wildly until it reached a radius of 400,000 li. It had reached the normal standard of an inner world for an 8th rank peak evolver. Not weaker than an ordinary 8th rank peak, the young god Lin Yuan appraised himself. With a complete understanding of the Taiyang rule, for the Taiyang divine spirit, that meant being at the peak of the 8th layer. Moreover, the Taiyang divine spirit wasn't following the martial Tao cultivation system. Its essence was a primordial spirit, and the limit of the rules was its limit. Now it's at the peak of the 8th layer, but if I understand the Taiyin rule, and the Taiyin primordial spirit also reaches the peak of the 8th layer, what would our combined strength be when we merge into the Taiji primordial spirit? Lin Yuan's yang spirit anticipated inwardly. The Taiyin and Taiyang primordial spirits condensed by Lin Yuan through the martial path evolutionary path were split from the Taiji primordial spirit. The two could also merge as one. Moreover, when the Taiyang divine spirit and the Taiyin primordial spirit are fused, their strength will surge significantly, possibly not weaker than the main body. At the 7th layer, if the Taiyin and Taiyang primordial spirits merged, they could even forcefully create a second Taiji microcosm. Speaking of the Taiyin primordial spirit, I should be able to go to the medium-sized otherworldly battlefield now, right? The young god Lin Yuan pondered. Eternal spatial rifts in the medium-sized otherworldly battlefields are much larger than those in the small-sized ones. Lin Yuan speculated that being in such large eternal spatial rifts might accelerate the accumulation of the world-breaking origin force. However, when Lin Yuan was at the 7th rank, the goddess of wisdom did not advise him to go to the medium-sized otherworldly battlefields, not even with an avatar. Avatars are not invincible. Some unbeatable 8th rank as well as 9th rank evolvers have the means to counter avatars. Lin Yuan was a peerless genius of human civilization and the founder of the martial path evolutionary path. The goddess of wisdom naturally prioritized safeguarding his safety. Now that Lin Yuan had stepped into the 8th layer, heading to a medium-sized otherworldly battlefield should pose no problem. Theoretically speaking, the strongest beings in a medium-sized otherworldly battlefield are invincible at the 8th layer, with a small probability of encountering 9th-rank powerhouses. With his primordial spirit concealed, blending in even if an extreme situation arose, he could simply abandon the primordial spirit. Although a medium-sized otherworldly battlefield was far more dangerous than the marginal Milky Way star region. But Lin Yuan wasn't going there with his identity exposed, so with it concealed, who would know he was the peerless genius of human civilization? Goddess of Wisdom. Lin Yuan immediately applied to the Goddess of Wisdom. Any human evolver wishing to travel to the battlefields of different races needed to apply to the 3 goddesses. Otherwise they could not get a battlefield pass, which would mean being undocumented and subject to attack from both humans and the different species. Respected 7th level citizen Lin Yuan, your application has been approved. The solemn and cold voice of the Goddess of Wisdom came through. As expected, it's approved. A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. With strength reaching the 8th layer and identity concealed, there should be no risk in heading to the medium-sized otherworldly battlefield, which was evident from the Goddess of Wisdom's approval of the application. Plus, armed with the soul-settling pearl bestowed by Xiaxia Supreme Being, he was even more secure. Although the soul-settling pearl was on his true body, the avatar could still activate it if subjected to memory contamination or similar tactics affecting the main body. It would temporarily free itself from influence and completely control the self-destruction of the avatar. Small-sized otherworldly battlefield. The Taiyin primordial spirit left the eternal spatial rift, exited the battlefield, and headed towards the chosen medium-sized otherworldly battlefield. Actually, the most origin force-saving method would be for the Taiyin primordial spirit to stay put and the Yang spirit to travel to the chosen medium-sized otherworldly battlefield. Once the Yang spirit arrived, the Yin god would depart and return to Chiquan main star. However, doing so would risk exposing both the Yang god and Yin god to the starry skies simultaneously. Lin Yuan would rather waste a bit of world-breaking origin force than take the slightest risk upon himself. Milky Way main star. Lin Yuan ended his cultivation. He scanned the scenes on the main star. The development is good. Lin Yuan nodded slightly. Under the management of his 4 8th layer and 2 7th layer subordinates, the Milky Way main star was thriving, and major forces like the nearby star domain trade associations were beginning to settle in. Continue taking stock. Lin Yuan's mind stirred and he started to inspect his spoils of war. Hunting those special life forms, the alien lone walkers, earned Lin Yuan a great fortune, especially Xianxia and Ao Du, 2 special beings that contributed to nearly 100,000 cubic universe crystals in revenue. Furthermore, the other special life forms and alien lone walkers also brought Lin Yuan substantial gains. After collecting recognizable treasures into a unified space bracelet, Lin Yuan began to inventory the remaining miscellaneous items. As special life forms and alien lone walkers who had lived for eons, they occasionally acquired some treasures they did not recognize and would collect them. Now all these treasures of unknown origin and use had piled up in Lin Yuan's possession, almost as large as a mountain range. Take a slow look. Lin Yuan had a very simple method for dealing with these miscellaneous items of unknown origin and use, and that was to crush them. Any treasure that could withstand his blow without shattering was likely to have some significance. Boom boom boom. Lin Yuan's mind moved slightly. Hundreds of miscellaneous items suddenly began to deform and turn into chaff. Just as Lin Yuan was about to look away, seemingly having spotted something, his gaze fell on the pile of chaff. There lay a gray gourd falling along with the chaff. This gourd, it blocked my strike? A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. No matter what the use of the gourd was, at least its material was good, and it could be worth a few cubic universe crystals. Let's see what's different. Grasping the gourd, Lin Yuan applied a little force, only to find it unmovable, and his expression gradually changed. With his current strength, even a slight exertion of force could cause a planet's tectonic plates to tear apart and plunge into a mass extinction period. With his consciousness probing out and touching the gray gourd, Lin Yuan's expression subtly changed. Chapter 435 The Unimaginable Gourd. Please subscribe. Consciousness can't even penetrate it, this gourd? Lin Yuan's expression turned slightly serious as he carefully examined the palm-sized gray gourd. In the vast cosmos, many substances are extremely hard, very difficult to destroy, Yet few can block the penetration of an evolver's conscious power. Conscious power is even more difficult to detect than the power of the world or the power of the soul, as it is a derivative of spirit will. With Lin Yuan's current mental will index, unless it's a treasure or rare treasure of the 8th layer, he could see through most of it if not in minute detail. An 8th layer treasure or rare treasure? Lin Yuan touched the surface of the gray gourd, cold and with almost no resistance, as if it were the texture of some high-end alloy. What exactly formed this? For a moment, Lin Yuan couldn't determine whether the gray gourd was artificially made or had always been this way. Goddess of Wisdom, do you know what this gourd is? After pondering for a while, Lin Yuan decisively connected to the Goddess of Wisdom. As one of the 3 ultimate intelligence goddesses of human civilization, the Goddess of Wisdom has almost all known materials of humanity recorded. Be it treasures or rare treasures. As long as they had been uploaded by human evolvers, they would be documented by the Goddess of Wisdom. Therefore one consults the goddess when in doubt. This is not just an empty saying in human civilization. Respected Galaxy Master, there is nothing similar to this object in the database. The solemn and cool voice of the Goddess of Wisdom came through. Nothing similar? Lin Yuan was slightly startled. The Goddess of Wisdom had only performed a preliminary scan, and to conduct a more in-depth identification, it would be necessary to send the gray gourd to the central star domain. Lin Yuan's spirit willpower could not penetrate the gourd, but that did not mean human civilization could not manage. However, even with just a preliminary scan, to get the Goddess of Wisdom to give a result of no similarity was extremely rare. In more than 2 million years of the Starry Sea era, had the countless evolvers of human civilization never seen anything? Not to say something exactly like the gray gourd, but at least there should be many roughly similar things, right? But the result given by the Goddess of Wisdom was none. Treasure, this must be a treasure. Lin Yuan constricted his thoughts and looked at the gray gourd in front of him. A normal item, even if never seen by the Goddess of Wisdom, would definitely have some similar information. I got this gray gourd from an alien lone walker? Lin Yuan began to recall that the owner of the gray gourd was indeed a 7th-rank different species lone walker. Compared to special life forms, different species lone walkers preferred roaming the universe, and after a long time, they generally collected many bizarre items. This gray gourd, which was kept in that 7th-rank different species lone walker's space ring along with other objects of dubious provenance, was one such item. Clearly, the 7th-rank different species lone walker had not discovered anything special about the gray gourd. Perhaps the other party only sensed that the gray gourd was extremely hard and could block the penetration of the will. Those different species lone walkers did not have the identification methods of the Goddess of Wisdom. In the vastness of the universe, the emergence of one particularly hard object is not unusual. Initially, Lin Yuan did not pay much attention to the gray gourd, thinking that it might be worth a few cubic universe crystals? Hard. Let's see just how hard you are. Lin Yuan gripped the gray gourd and began to squeeze with force. Terrible force began to subtly affect the surrounding void. It should be known that the physical body divine ability Lin Yuan had awakened was the mountain lifting, known as a divine skill of power. With Lin Yuan's 8th-stage martial arts physical body, under the enhancement of the divine ability mountain lifting, he could easily crush a higher life planet. A regular 8th-rank evolver wouldn't be able to withstand such a squeeze. This was the suppression brought by absolute power. One of the 9 supreme beings of human civilization was the ultimate in the Tao of the rule of power. With a mere gesture, pure force could tear apart millions of miles of the main world space. That ultimate supreme being of power, along with Xianxia supreme being, was known as one of the 2 strongest supreme beings in terms of killing power in the Human Civilization Alliance. Still blocked it? After squeezing with full strength for a short while, Lin Yuan released his hand and noticed not even a slight mark had been left on the gray gourd. His expression changed once again. Even the piece of 8th layer armor he wore would show some mark under such force. And that was 8th layer armor designed for defense. But this gray gourd did not appear to be related to defense, yet its sturdiness exceeded even the 8th layer armor? I don't believe it. Lin Yuan's thoughts flickered. Carrying the gray gourd, he arrived in his inner world. The inner world now extended across more than 700,000 miles, having integrated 3 cosmic rare treasures, and coupled with Lin Yuan's own comprehension of the laws, was becoming ever closer to the real world. Go. With a toss of the gray gourd from his hand, the power of the world within the inner world surged tumultuously, sweeping the gray gourd away. The terrifying world power seemed as if to recreate heaven and earth, attacking the gray gourd from all angles. However, No matter how Lin Yuan stimulated the world power, the gray gourd remained unmoved, floating buoyantly under the immense suppression of the world force. Even the power of the world can't do anything to it? Lin Yuan's face grew solemn. In his inner world, he could exert almost as much strength as an invincible 8th rank who mastered a certain cosmic force. Yet even so he still could not shake the gray gourd. Lin Yuan even had the sensation that even if he became an invincible 8th rank and advanced to 9th rank, he still would not be able to affect this gray gourd. Chapter 436 The Unimaginable Gourd. Please subscribe. Understood. This gourd. Lin Yuan immediately felt it was somewhat troublesome. Study it for some more time. If I still don't understand, I'll just take it to the goddess of wisdom for a reward. Lin Yuan thought to himself that even if this gray gourd was truly an incredible treasure, if he couldn't use it, it would be as good as junk, just like its previous owner, and eventually ended up in his hands. A bird in hand is worth two in the bush. Not to mention anything else, this gray gourd alone could resist the oppressive force of other worlds, probably worth a couple of cosmic rare treasures. In the following days, Lin Yuan tried various methods whenever he had the time. Since being forceful didn't work, Lin Yuan tried a gentler approach. For instance, he tried to align the power of his soul with the gray gourd. But it was of no use. He even placed the gray gourd into the origin sea within his inner world. Certain treasures, such as origin fine gold, crave the power of the origin source. But still it was useless. The precious power of the origin source couldn't move the gray gourd at all. Several days later, Lin Yuan finally gave up hope. It seems I am not destined for you. Lin Yuan stared at the gray gourd, his expression somewhat regretful. He knew this gray gourd concealed a great secret, but he just didn't know how to unlock it. To have a treasure mountain yet unable to enter. This feeling made Lin Yuan's mind complex. Should I try dripping blood? Lin Yuan suddenly thought to himself, though without much hope. The so-called blood recognition method is quite an outdated approach. In both the human alliance and among different species, the seizure is not uncommon, with many evolvers seeking to start off at a higher point, even breeding a replicated physical body integrated with special life bloodlines for their progeny. Thus, physical bodies are not fixed and neither are bloodlines. The soul, and even more so the spirit will, is fundamental. The method of blood recognition, being limited to bloodlines, was abandoned by human civilization many years ago. Recognition methods are fundamentally based on the soul, depending on the spirit will. But now Lin Yuan had no other choice. He was just trying randomly. Even if it still didn't work, it wouldn't be a surprise. Lin Yuan exhaled lightly. He then raised his right hand, squeezing out a drop of blood. With Lin Yuan's current physical strength, if he had not intentionally squeezed it out, the blood would not have flowed out on its own. Drip. A drop of exceedingly viscous blood fell on the gray gourd. Lin Yuan's expression subtly changed. Due to the divine ability Blood Rebirth, Lin Yuan had absolute control over every drop of his blood. Even across great distances he could sense its exact condition. But just now, as the blood dripped onto the surface of the gray gourd, Lin Yuan suddenly lost all sensation of that drop of blood. Not only that, the drop of blood that fell on the surface of the gray gourd suddenly merged into the gourd. So it needed blood dripped? Lin Yuan's eyes lit up, closely observing any changes in the gray gourd. A faint vibration began emanating from within the gray gourd. The moment Lin Yuan felt the faint vibration, his mind disengaged from his body as if he had arrived at a boundless ocean of crimson red. Blood containing the power of rebirth aligns with the unlocking condition. A moment of clarity passed, and Lin Yuan heard a mental fluctuation by his ear, the meaning easily understood. After a long while, Lin Yuan once again opened his eyes. This gourd. Lin Yuan took another look at the gray gourd in front of him. At this moment, the color of the gray gourd began to subtly change. It was no longer a dull gray, but now had hints of crimson. From the brief contact just now, Lin Yuan knew that the gourd was brewing some kind of special liquid. This special liquid had incredible effects on life's transformation, but its side effects were tremendous, and only those whose bloodlines contained the power of rebirth could attempt to absorb this liquid. The power of rebirth? That must refer to my physical body divine ability Blood Rebirth, Lin Yuan thought to himself. In fact, once one reached a 7th rank evolver, even if their physical body was shattered, as long as their soul still existed, recovery was possible. But such recovery was merely healing, definitely not rebirth. What is meant by blood rebirth here is not a drop of fresh blood, but any single essence of life that can continually regenerate. Blood is merely the medium that carries the life essence. What kind of transformation requires such a prerequisite condition? Lin Yuan looked amazed. Up to now, Lin Yuan had not encountered a second evolver who possessed a similar blood rebirth ability. Even Lin Yuan's physical body divine ability did not originate from the main world, but from the central divine continent. It was only because Lin Yuan, in the central divine China world, had fully understood this divine ability and condensed the divine ability imprint that he was able to bring it back to the main world. Let's see what the effect is. Lin Yuan picked up the gourd and gently shook it, then turned the mouth downwards. After a confirmation from the gourd, Lin Yuan had preliminarily met the qualifications to use it. Moments later, the downward-turned mouth of the gourd condensed a drop of liquid. The liquid was crystal clear and crimson, as if it contained an entire crimson ocean. So beautiful, Lin Yuan stared at the drop of liquid, his spirit subtly beginning to indulge. Merely looking at it made him feel as if the drop contained the entire cosmic starry sky. According to the information I received, should I just drink it directly? With his consciousness returning to the outside world, the gray gourd mixed with crimson also returned to the exterior. The drop of crimson liquid was still condensed at the mouth of the gourd. The liquids inside the gourd, depending on their levels, come in 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue and purple. Only by completely absorbing the crimson liquid and thoroughly transforming the physical body, will the second color of liquid appear. Lin Yuan silently contemplated. Let's try it. With a slight mental movement, Lin Yuan let a drop of fresh blood float out from his body. According to the information from the gourd, absorbing the liquid entailed great risks. With a drop of fresh blood outside, even if something went wrong, he could quickly come back to life. Although Lin Yuan also left blood in Qikuan main star, it was too far away. Begin. Lin Yuan steadied his mind and swallowed the drop of crimson liquid collected at the gourd's mouth. Boom. In an instant, Lin Yuan felt his physical body starting to burn like a flame. Flesh and blood were burning, organs were burning, bones were burning, everything was burning. Then, under the physical body divine ability blood rebirth, everything Lin Yuan was burning started to rapidly recover. Thus, the burning force of the drop of crimson liquid and Lin Yuan's power of rebirth began to stalemate. Half a day later, Lin Yuan's body could no longer endure and suddenly turned to ash. As the effect of the crimson liquid dissipated, the scattered ashes quickly began to regenerate, and in a blink of an eye Lin Yuan's form was reconstituted. What is this thing? Lin Yuan hadn't even started to evaluate, when he shockingly discovered that his reborn physical body, with its circulation of blood and qi, had actually doubled in strength. It was doubled. It was not a 10% increase. Even a 10% increase would have been unbelievable. At Lin Yuan's level, where his physical soul was nearing its limit, further transformation, further evolutionary transformation, could only be achieved by breakthroughs of the current realm, or by consuming some rare cosmic treasures. But even so, the improvement obtained would not be significant, mostly a few percent, let alone doubling. Lin Yuan couldn't even dare to think of it. No, that's not right. It's not just the physical body that's improved. The inner world. Lin Yuan's expression was one of astonishment as his spirit rapidly entered his inner world. Boom boom boom. The inner world was vast and boundless. The inner world, which originally spanned 700,000 li, now shockingly expanded to 1,500,000 li. The power of the world operated like the sky was falling and the earth was splitting, and under the heavens, the sun formed by the cosmic rare treasure primordial flame now appeared much smaller because it could not keep up with the expansion of the inner world. My inner world? It also doubled in size. Lin Yuan murmured to himself, somewhat in disbelief. Chapter 437 Interstellar Migration. Please subscribe. The size of the inner world. It was influenced by two aspects. The first was the internal factor. The second was the external factor. The internal factor was the strength of the physical body, and the degree of understanding of the space rules, among other things. Normally, the deeper the understanding of the space rules, the more core space models would be comprehended, and thus the larger the inner world would grow. As for physical strength, it was difficult to significantly enhance physical strength in a short period of time. However, slowly enhancing physical strength over a long period until reaching its limit was not difficult at all. So, for human 8th rank evolvers, there were basically no problems in terms of the physical body. As for external factors, they were some space-related rare treasures, such as the incredibly precious world fruit, which could forcibly expand the size of the inner world when it was being established. However, such an expansion was one time, and if a 7th rank peak evolver used the world fruit for the first time, they would create an inner world spanning thousands of miles. To further expand this inner world of thousands of miles would require the evolver to enhance their understanding of space rules to a corresponding degree, exceeding the understanding of a world spanning thousands of miles. But now, Lin Yuan's understanding of space rules had not significantly increased. He had not used rare treasures such as the world fruit. Yet, his inner world had inexplicably doubled in size. This was simply shocking. This? Lin Yuan took a deep breath. The inner world was the foundation of an 8th rank evolver, even affecting 9th rank evolvers and even 10th rank evolvers. When two 8th rank evolvers fought, one with an inner world spanning 100,000 miles and the other 50,000 miles, without any other decisive factors influencing, the battle would end in a crushing defeat. The scarlet liquid in the gourd immediately doubled the size of Lin Yuan's inner world, and its effect on combat power would far exceed doubling. And Lin Yuan carefully sensed for a while and discovered an even more astonishing fact. It was not merely an increase but a foundational increase. What is a foundational increase? Normally, an 8th rank evolver starts with an inner world spanning approximately 100 miles. Afterward, by constantly comprehending the laws of space and enhancing physical strength, theoretically, if they mastered the complete space laws at the 8th rank, the size of their inner world would reach 10 million miles in diameter. This is the theoretical upper limit for an 8th rank evolver. Very few 8th rank evolvers could expand their inner worlds to such an extent. Understanding complete space rules? Even some 9th rank evolvers haven't comprehended them, let alone 8th rank ones. Lin Yuan's foundational increase was not just an additional 700,000 miles on the 10 million mile basis. Rather, for Lin Yuan, the theoretical upper limit of an 8th rank evolver directly became 20 million miles. This impact would definitely not be limited to the 8th rank. As Lin Yuan stepped into the 9th rank and even the 10th rank, he would gain a tremendous advantage amongst peers at the same level. Incredible. Truly incredible. Lin Yuan's heart did not settle for a long time. Even he had never imagined that there would be such methods in the universe that could break the shackles of species. Worlds spanning 10 million miles were the shackles of human 8th rank evolvers. But certain special life forms had inner worlds exceeding this limit. For instance, the peak bloodline special life form Starry Sky Wanderer Kuan, these life forms have an upper limit far beyond that of humans. But there was no help for it. Species differed from each other. This is just the first drop of the scarlet liquid, and I have not yet fully assimilated this drop, and there are 6 more grades of liquid to absorb. What will the upper limit of my inner world reach? Perhaps it will reach how many million miles? Or even billions of miles? Lin Yuan's gaze shifted, looking once again at the gray-red gourd in front of him. If the size of the inner world reaches several tens of millions of miles or even billions, then even if Lin Yuan did not master some type of cosmic force, he could still grind those invincible 8th ranks into the ground. The so-called cosmic force was just another means to greatly enhance an 8th rank evolver's capabilities, just as a vast inner world could do the same. Opportunity. This is undoubtedly an invaluable opportunity even for a supreme being, to shatter racial shackles, and even far exceed such shackles, is very hard to achieve. Lin Yuan pondered silently. Supreme beings towered above all, transcending the universe, able to cause permanent damage to the main world. But that was all by themselves. If it were for other evolvers to break limits and shackles, it would surely come at a great cost. This gourd must absolutely not be revealed, Lin Yuan decided internally. He could inform human civilization about the second way to join the Magic Jade Tower as an ordinary member because it had no impact on himself. Whether it's one member of the Magic Jade Tower or 10, it made little difference. And to comprehend all 3,333 evolution paths in a short time was definitely not possible. But there was only one gourd like this for Lin Yuan. Told the goddess of wisdom, what would Lin Yuan do if a supreme being requested to borrow it? Continue. Lin Yuan shook the gray-red gourd. Then he turned the mouth of the gourd downwards. Before long, another drop of scarlet liquid formed at the mouth of the gourd. The drop of scarlet liquid Lin Yuan had previously ingested had not been completely absorbed in the end, but had transformed his physical body to ashes. To fully absorb the liquid, he must persist until that fire, which burns everything, is extinguished. Time passed. 6 months later, on the Milky Way main star, Lin Yuan sat cross-legged. Chapter 438 Interstellar Migration. Please subscribe. _2 There was a faint crimson flame burning within. The terrifying power almost spilled out, capable of easily burning Lin Yuan's flesh, viscera, and bones, forcing the blood rebirth, divine skill to be continuously activated. How could the might of that crimson flame be underestimated? He did not know how much time had passed. Suddenly, with a loud bang, Lin Yuan's physical body turned directly into ashes. In an instant, amidst countless ashes, Lin Yuan's body quickly reformed, returning anew. No wonder it's necessary to have methods like blood rebirth to open the gourd. Without such techniques, daring to absorb the liquid inside the gourd would cost more lives than one has. Lin Yuan thought silently to himself. Even with blood rebirth, Lin Yuan felt somewhat exhausted at this moment. Blood rebirth could not be used indefinitely, each use consumed some of Lin Yuan's power. Although it allowed for rapid recovery, frequent use was unsustainable. However, a smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. For the past half-year, Lin Yuan had spent most of his time absorbing the crimson liquid inside the gourd, not knowing how many times he had been reborn through blood rebirth. But the results were clearly visible. Now Lin Yuan's inner world had reached a circumference of 2 million li. That was 3 times its original size of 700,000 li normally. To expand the inner world to 2 million li in circumference, it was necessary to fully understand 3,000 core space models. This was a necessary prerequisite. But now Lin Yuan's comprehension of core space models was only just over 2,000, corresponding to an inner world size that should be 700,000 li. I wonder how big the teacher's inner world is. Lin Yuan thought silently, the body of Qikuan Star Lord being the starry sky wanderer Kuan, whose inner world's limit should exceed 10 million li by a lot. But that was the limit. Even for starry sky wanderer Kuan, not many could reach the limit of their inner world. Human evolvers wanting to touch their limits needed to fully understand the complete space rules, and for starry sky wanderer Kuan, it wasn't much easier. He'll rest for a while. Lin Yuan stopped cultivating and planned to go out for a stroll. Just then, the voice of the goddess of wisdom suddenly rang out. Respected Galactic Star Lord, the current Milky Way star region has stabilized. Shall we commence interstellar migration? Interstellar migration? Lin Yuan was not surprised. This star region, also known as the Milky Way star region, was originally taken from the Shadow tribe by humans. It was naturally the territory of the Shadow tribe and contained no human citizens. Lin Yuan had come here early to familiarize himself with the environment and deal with some unstable elements. To transform this star region entirely into a human civilization territory, massive interstellar migration was necessary. In the star region, with over 1.5 million life planets, without a large number of human citizens residing permanently, these life planets were not very significant. Those resource planets also needed many human citizens stationed there. Many of these planets had frequent magnetic field fluctuations that could potentially cause malfunction in intelligent life. They must be controlled by human citizens to ensure no major issues arise. Start it. Lin Yuan nodded. The Milky Way star region was indeed lacking a large number of human citizens. Qikuan star domain. On an ordinary middle-grade life planet, a young man was saying goodbye to his parents. Son, how good it would be for us to live here peacefully. Why must you migrate to such a distant star domain? The father looked helplessly at his younger son. For ordinary citizens, one might never leave the star system in a lifetime, let alone the star domain. The son volunteering to migrate to a fringe star field meant that it was very likely they would never see each other again. Ordinary citizens did not have access to virtual world privileges. Dad, Mom, the universe is so vast, I don't want to be trapped on a planet all my life. This time, the star domain I am migrating to is overseen by our Shirsan Peak Master, the Milky Way star region. As one of the first migrants, I will definitely get more opportunities and maybe I can become an evolver. Then, I will definitely come back to see you. The young man was spirited, not noticing the sorrow in his parents' eyes. Let it be, the son has grown up. Since he has his own ideas, let's go along with it. The mother sighed nearby. When you get there, make sure to give us a video call. The mother patted the young boy's head and cautioned. Got it, got it. The migration battleship is almost here. I have to go now. Take good care of yourselves. The young boy glanced at the time and immediately turned and strode away. The two parents watched for a long time and only withdrew their gazes when the boy had completely disappeared. The territory of the Human Civilization Alliance was expanding at every moment, so migration was a common occurrence. Migrating to a newly open star domain had its disadvantages and its advantages. The disadvantage lied in the living environment or even the planetary environment, which was definitely not as stable and safe as in the more established star domains. Some newly opened star domains might also face threats from indigenous populations. But the advantages were also clear. That was the completely open channel for ascension. In those mature and stable rear star domains, human citizens could live well even without working, thanks to ample social welfare. But the social classes were essentially ossified. Unless one became an evolver or a high-ranking citizen, it was hard to move across classes. But was it that easy to become an evolver? Not to mention a high-ranking citizen. But in these newly opened star domains, such goals were relatively easier to achieve. The various paths for becoming an evolver and the merit points needed for citizen rank promotion were opened up to a degree to encourage migrants in the new star domains. Although not much, there was at least a way to obtain them. Thus, many human citizens who were dissatisfied with their current status and had lofty ideals did not object to migration. Chiquan main star. Lin Yuan briefly reviewed the migration situation. Many citizens from the Chiquan star domain have come over? Lin Yuan nodded slightly. In the Milky Way star region, Xianxia Peak Master's territory, if one were to choose to migrate, better to come to the Milky Way star region rather than moving to an unknown star domain. Not to mention getting the care of Xianxia Peak Master, at least one wouldn't suffer from inferior treatment. Human civilization spans the universe, based upon its vast population. Lin Yuan thought silently in his heart. Like the insect race, one of the peak clans, the true members of the insect race were rare, and the vast majority of them were insect race warriors produced by the insect race hive. In various battlefields between humans and the insect race, many involved one insect race hive battling against countless human evolvers. The most terrifying aspect of the insect race hive was its ability to continuously produce insect race warriors, and although it consumed huge amounts of energy, there were hardly any apparent limitations. Even so, in the war between humans and the insect race, even if one ignored the influence of the top-tier combat power of the supreme beings, humans were only pressured by the insect race, far from being defeated. What was it that they relied on? It was the large number of human evolvers. And where did these numerous human evolvers come from? It was from an even larger population base. B520 Alien Battlefield. The Taiyin primordial spirit, disguised as a typical human 8th layer evolver, entered the human-controlled area of the battlefield. In a medium-sized otherworldly battlefield, 8th layer powerhouses were quite common, ranging from early stage to mid-stage to late stage, and even peak stage of the 8th layer had significant differences. Not to mention those nearly transcending the 8th layer known as the invincible of the 8th layer. An 8th layer invincible could generally dominate in a medium-sized otherworldly battlefield, and even if they had bad luck and ran into a 9th rank powerhouse, they still had a chance to survive. This battlefield's eternal spatial rift spans 10,000 meters, caused by the aftermath of a supreme being's actions 150,000 years ago. Lin Yuan's Taiyin primordial spirit eagerly anticipated as he followed the human evolvers towards the eternal spatial rift. Very soon, Lin Yuan saw that terrifyingly fluctuating eternal spatial rift. Let's see how much this boosts the accumulation of world-breaking origin force. Lin Yuan immediately dove into his inner world mentally, keenly sensing that majestic and grand door to the myriad realms. The spatial rifts in the previously encountered small-sized otherworldly battlefields ranged in size from 10 meters to several tens of meters. A moment later, Lin Yuan's eyes snapped open, a look of joy surfacing on his face. Chapter 439 The Invincibles of the 8th Layer. Please subscribe. No. B520 Alien Battlefield. The Taiyin primordial spirit stood still, looking towards the massive 10,000-meter eternal spatial rift. The accumulation speed of the world-breaking origin force here is much faster than in the small-sized otherworldly battlefields. Is the size of the permanent spatial rift, not the number, what influences the accumulation of the world-breaking origin force? Lin Yuan contemplated. He had tried before, sending the Taiyin primordial spirit and Taiyang divine spirit to different small-sized otherworldly battlefields, approaching the eternal spatial rifts at the same time. However, there was no significant enhancement effect on the increase of the world-breaking origin force. But now, approaching this 10,000-meter eternal spatial rift in the medium-sized otherworldly battlefield, Lin Yuan distinctly felt the difference. The initial speed of accumulating world-breaking origin force at the door to the myriad realms was 1 strand every 333 days. The spatial rift in the small-sized otherworldly battlefield increased this speed to 1 strand every 290 days. Now, Lin Yuan closed his eyes again to confirm. It's 1 strand every 200 days. A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. Accumulating one strand of world-breaking origin force every 200 days meant more than 2 strands could be accumulated in a year. Compared to the initial speed of accumulation, it had almost doubled. I currently have 17 strands of world-breaking origin force, Lin Yuan thought to himself. 17 strands of world-breaking origin force, in theory, could support him to traverse 17 times without interruption. However, that was the most basic traversal, belonging to random traversal. When Lin Yuan's strength was not yet strong, even random traversal could bring him significant improvement. After all, not being strong meant there was still a large distance to the limit. With endless dimensions and endless domains, even random traversal to a world would likely assist him. But now, Lin Yuan had already become an 8th layer evolver, and for a large number of worlds, even if he traversed to them, the help he could gain would be extremely limited. For example, the worlds Lin Yuan traversed to on his 3rd and 4th traversal. Not to mention breaking through the shackles, it was questionable whether he could even recover to his peak strength. The most critical point is, after Lin Yuan's 7th traversal, which was to overcome the heart demon tribulation, he concluded that the time Lin Yuan stayed in the world he traversed to related to the world's own level. Simply put, the higher the level of the world, the longer Lin Yuan's stay and vice versa. Shortly thereafter, the Taiyin primordial spirit found the best position near that massive 10,000-meter eternal spatial rift. This position maximized the accumulation of world-breaking origin force, eventually increasing the speed to 1 strand every 198 days. My inner world now, Lin Yuan felt the Taiyin world within his Qi Dantian. After reaching the 8th layer, even just a primordial spirit could open up an inner world. The Taiyang divine spirit created a Taiyang world filled with flames, and the Taiyin primordial spirit established the Taiyin world. However, influenced by various factors, the inner worlds opened by the original self, the Taiyang divine spirit, and the Taiyin primordial spirit differed. The original self, holding both Taiyin Taiyang Taiji, with complete and perfect rules, initially opened up a world over 700,000 li. After transformation by the liquid from the mysterious gourd, the inner world had swelled to a size of 2 million li in diameter. Owing to mastering the Taiyang rule, the inner world created by the Taiyang divine spirit also reached 400,000 li in diameter, stepping into the threshold of the 8th layer peak. As for the Taiyin primordial spirit, the current inner world is only 200,000 li in diameter. It can be foreseen that once Lin Yuan comprehends the Taiyin rule completely, his Taiyin world will also reach a size of 400,000 li. Unfortunately, the liquid in that gourd only has effects on life with flesh and blood, and has no effect on energy life forms. The Taiyin primordial spirit shook its head slightly. The cosmos is vast, giving birth to countless lives, among which flesh and blood beings form the mainstream. Yet they are only the mainstream. Besides flesh and blood beings, there exist life forms made of energy. So-called energy life forms are those without flesh and blood. Their essence of life is the soul or other ethereal energies. Strictly speaking, Lin Yuan's 2 primordial spirits could be classified as energy life forms. Compared to flesh and blood life forms, energy life forms have many advantages, such as being immune to most physical attacks, etc. Within human civilization, certain special bloodline traits and methods can temporarily realize the energy transformation of the body. But these transformations are nothing compared to true energy life forms. For the time being, this primordial spirit of mine will need to be stationed here. Lin Yuan glanced around. The medium-sized otherworldly battlefield he deliberately chose, aside from having a permanent spatial rift, was selected because battles of high intensity rarely occur here. This was to Lin Yuan's satisfaction. Should a high-intensity battle occur, it might lead to a scene like the original small-sized otherworldly battlefield, where human evolvers fled en masse. Of course, in most high-intensity battlefields, human civilization evolvers are generally at an advantage, actively hunting down different species. Milky Way main star. Lin Yuan was still in closed-door cultivation. The many trivial matters of the main star and the Milky Way star region were mostly delegated to his subordinates and overseen more closely by the goddess of wisdom. There weren't likely to be any problems. After once again being reduced to dust and returning through the physical body divine ability blood rebirth, Lin Yuan began to feel the changes in his physical body and inner world. The rate of improvement is getting slower. Lin Yuan's expression showed contemplation. The first time he absorbed that drop of crimson liquid, Lin Yuan's physical inner world doubled in size instantly. With each subsequent absorption, the increase of the physical inner world became progressively smaller. Lin Yuan wasn't surprised by this. The fact that the liquid in the gourd could forcibly increase the base size of the inner world was already incredibly astonishing. Chapter 440 The Invincibles of the 8th Layer. Please subscribe. _2 And currently, Lin Yuan had only absorbed the first type of scarlet red liquid. There were still 6 kinds of differently colored liquids waiting for him. Now my inner world has reached a circumference of 2,200,000 miles, which is 3.1 times the initial circumference of 700,000 miles, Lin Yuan thought to himself. The further along he got, the smaller the margin of improvement became. Lin Yuan estimated that the first scarlet red liquid would boost his physical body and inner world up to a maximum of 3.33 times. Once he had fully absorbed this scarlet red liquid, Lin Yuan started to absorb the next kind, the orange liquid. 3.33 times? Lin Yuan fell into contemplation. He was very familiar with this number. One of the prerequisites to becoming a regular member of the Magic Jade Tower was the understanding of 3,333 evolutionary paths. The door to the myriad realms initially accumulated world-breaking origin force at a rate of 333 days. Both the Magic Jade Tower and the door to the myriad realms had mysterious origins, especially the door to the myriad realms, which easily sent Lin Yuan to the worlds of other dimensional planes. In his weaker hours, Lin Yuan didn't think much of it. But as his strength increased and his grasp over the space rules deepened, he increasingly realized how terrifying such a method was. Even a supreme being wouldn't be able to create a passageway to other dimensional planes, right? Continue. Let's see what kind of improvement the following orange-yellow liquid has after I've completely absorbed the scarlet red liquid. Lin Yuan rested for a while and then resumed absorbing the scarlet red liquid. In addition, Lin Yuan did not neglect to perfect the martial path evolutionary path, nor the contemplation of the space rules model. Everything was proceeding in an orderly fashion. Almost every day that passed, Lin Yuan's strength increased by a notch. The expansion of a single mile in his inner world could bring a considerable increase to an 8th layer evolver, let alone the fact that Lin Yuan's inner world was expanding at a rate far exceeding a mile every day. Several months later, the Milky Way main star welcomed a visitor. Haha, your chicken's little disciple? Impressive. Inside the palace, Lin Yuan and a bald man in a white robe faced each other as they sat. This bald man in a white robe exuded an aura of brightness and sanctity with every move, causing an instinctive feeling of closeness and fondness in others. White Light Star Master, if you put it that way, I'll be a little embarrassed, Lin Yuan said with a smile. The White Light Star Master before him was an old 8th rank peak powerhouse of the human civilization and a good friend of Chiquan Star Lord. Although the White Light Star Master was not invincible at the 8th rank, his strength was absolutely at the peak of the 8th rank. In terms of the comprehension of space rules, he was almost no weaker than the Chiquan Star Lord. It was only because he hadn't comprehended a certain cosmic force that he was somewhat inferior to Chiquan Star Lord. An invincible 8th layer powerhouse was essentially still in the 4th stage of the 8th layer. The only difference was that they had comprehended a certain cosmic force that substantially increased their combat power, elevating them above the 8th layer, and even giving them the ability to save their lives in front of 9th rank evolvers. This is the thunderous heart you asked for. The White Light Star Master looked at Lin Yuan with a cheerful smile and then threw out a heart completely composed of thunder that seemed to beat. The thunderous heart was a rare treasure from an 8-star universe and could be regarded as a top-quality item among the 8-star treasures. As Lin Yuan's inner world expanded rapidly, it needed such cosmic treasures for refinement. He had learned from his teacher, Chiquan Star Lord, that the White Light Star Master had recently acquired this thunderous heart, prompting Lin Yuan to initiate contact with the latter for a trade. It happened that the White Light Star Master was returning from one of the battlefields of different races and passing by the Milky Way star region, so he took the opportunity to deliver it himself. Thank you, White Light Star Master. Lin Yuan immediately took out 12,000 cubic universe crystals. As a top-quality 8-star universe rare treasure, the thunderous heart often had no fixed market price but traded between 10,000 and 20,000 cubic universe crystals. That the White Light Star Master was willing to make the trade for 12,000 cubic universe crystals was clearly due to regard for the face of Chiquan Star Lord. Then the trade is complete. The White Light Star Master accepted the cosmic crystals and took another look at Lin Yuan. What path do you plan to take next? Comprehend a cosmic force and become an invincible at 8th rank? Invincible at the 8th rank? That's too hard, Lin Yuan said, slightly startled and shaking his head. Whether it was human civilization, other peak clans or powerful ordinary clans, They all had powerhouses at the level of invincibility in the 8th rank. But to this day, no clan had succeeded in outlining a specific method to become invincible at the 8th rank. Each invincible 8th rank evolver was unique, and the cosmic forces they comprehended were all different. It's indeed very difficult to become an invincible at the 8th rank. Many 8th layer evolvers haven't comprehended any cosmic force even until they advanced to the 9th rank. The White Light Star Master nodded. Using human civilization as an example, it might take thousands of 8th layer evolvers to produce just one invincible at the 8th rank. To become an invincible is also a matter of luck. It's difficult for other evolvers, but for you, a trace of strangeness emerged on the face of the White Light Star Master. Lin Yuan's talent was absolutely the most terrifying he had ever seen. Under 100 years of age, he had not only become an 8th rank evolver, but he had also single-handedly cleansed the Milky Way star region, eradicating all those powerful special life forms and alien lone walkers? To accomplish this, one would need at least the combat power of an evolver at the peak of the 8th rank. This was simply freakish. The White Light Star Master didn't even know how to describe Lin Yuan. But one thing was certain. The term 8th layer invincible, as it applied to other evolvers, might just be a matter of time in front of Lin Yuan? After he had sent away the White Light Star Master, Lin Yuan fell into deep thought. In recent times, he had also been contemplating how to become 8th order invincible. But he hadn't come up with any results. The cosmic force that each evolver at the 8th layer invincible stage had mastered had been gained through chance and could not be replicated. If Lin Yuan wanted to become 8th order invincible, he would have to comprehend his own type of cosmic force. But that was easier said than done. Take it slow, there's no need to target becoming 8th order invincible. It would be great to reach that level, but if I can't, I'll just push directly for the 9th rank. Lin Yuan had thought it through clearly. No matter how strong an 8th order invincible was, they only had a chance of survival in front of a 9th rank evolver, and clearly the former was far inferior to the latter. Besides, Lin Yuan's inability to comprehend a type of cosmic force didn't mean he couldn't become 8th order invincible. According to Lin Yuan's estimation, he just needed to expand his inner world to a circumference of tens of millions of miles. Even without using cosmic force, his true combat power wouldn't be inferior to an 8th order invincible. Outside the Milky Way star region, on a desolate planet, there were 5 figures standing quietly. These 5 figures, with completely concealed auras, were subtly in harmony with the surrounding cosmos and stars, and they were unmistakably 5 8th order invincible beings. A consciousness projection descended. A shadow of an insect nest, larger than the planet itself, appeared faintly visible. Your Eminence, the 5 8th order invincible beings slightly bowed towards the shadow of the insect nest upon seeing it. As 8th order invincible beings, even when encountering a 9th rank evolver, such reverence was unnecessary, for evolvers at the peak of the 8th rank usually had means to save their lives in the presence of a 9th rank. But the insect nest shadow in front of them was a great existence of the insect race, towering above the 9th rank. Your target this time is the Galaxy Master, that peerless genius of human civilization. The insect nest shadow emitted a mental fluctuation, its gaze sweeping over the 5 8th order invincible beings. Among the peak clans, there was an unwritten understanding to avoid deploying 9th rank or higher beings, whether on battlefields or elsewhere, as much as possible. Even if it was to assassinate the Galaxy Master, a peerless genius of the human civilization, they would not break this understanding. The insect race had previously broken this understanding because a body of a supreme being from outside the world had drifted in. It contained an evolution path that had no ultimate end. There was hope to add another supreme being, matriarch, to the insect race. So the insect race had directly overturned the table. But the Galaxy Master? The Galaxy Master was indeed a peerless genius of the human civilization, but could he eventually become a supreme being? The likelihood was that he could not. To the insect race, assassinating the Galaxy Master was merely an effort to reduce future losses on the battlefield. Your Eminence, that Galaxy Master has only newly ascended to the 8th rank. Even if he possesses the combat power of an 8th order invincible, one of us should suffice. Why the need for 5 to join forces? The 8th order invincible on the far left asked. Newly advanced to the 8th rank? The insect nest shadow glanced at this 8th order invincible, a hint of ridicule flashing in its eyes. Chapter 441 10 years, please subscribe. The remaining 4 8th layer invincibles saw this. They immediately realized that the insect race must know crucial intelligence or have deeper schemes. Galactic Star Lord, among our insect race's rating of numerous geniuses of the human long-lived generations, is ranked 7th, stated the shadowy figure of the bug hive. 7th? The 5 8th layer invincibles were shocked. The definition of genius by a peak clan like the insect race is extremely stringent, and their list of human geniuses considers many aspects. The ranking of the Galaxy Master at 7th means that every aspect about him must be terrifying. After all, it is very rare for those under 100 years to attain this ranking when they are only at the 8th layer. Galaxy Star Lord, your growth rate is too fast, the shadow of the bug hive stated without further explanation. Although the insect race lacks a virtual world and the 3 ultimate AI goddesses, they do have the top diviners. Through the confluence of numerous pieces of intelligence, they deduced the potential of the Galaxy Star Lord, which is in no way inferior to the offspring of supreme beings or human evolvers with special inheritances, and so on. Ultimately they placed him 7th on the list. In reality, these insect race diviners are unaware that the martial path evolutionary path was created by Lin Yuan. Xiaxin Supreme Being is aware of this fact and outright admitted that Lin Yuan's talent could rank in the top 20 or even top 10 in the history of human civilization. This ranking is in human historical context, whereas the insect race's list only pertains to the current generation of talents under long-live years old. There is no comparison between the two. If the insect race were to learn of Xiaxin Supreme Being's assessment of Lin Yuan, they would, without a doubt, shatter the unspoken agreement once more and employ even higher means to exterminate Lin Yuan at all costs. A human genius of this era, ranked 7th, has an extremely slim chance of becoming a supreme being. But a genius ranked in the top 20 or top 10 in human history has a much greater likelihood of achieving that status. Human civilization cannot allow other peak clans to have an additional supreme being, and the insect race is equally unwilling to see another supreme being emerge from human civilization. In truth, even Xiaxin Supreme Being underestimated Lin Yuan's talent. In Xiaxin's view, Lin Yuan must have received heritage from forces outside the main world, which is why he knew about the magic Jade Tower. And that heritage undoubtedly includes a plethora of cultivation resources and fortuitous encounters. This is what has made Lin Yuan what he is today. However, in reality, from the time Lin Yuan became an evolver until he took over the Milky Way star region, except for the door to the myriad realms, he never encountered any unknown fortune. This assassination attempt, I want you to completely kill that Galaxy Master so that he cannot resurrect. The shadow of the bug hive sent out a psychic wave. Unable to resurrect? Completely kill? The 5 8th layer invincibles looked at each other. Their expressions showed helplessness. With Lin Yuan's identity and strength, it was highly likely that the one stationed at the Milky Way main star would be an avatar. The true body, presumably, was in an extremely safe place. Even with the 5 of the 8th layer invincibles joining forces, the Star Lord would definitely not be able to resist, but completely killing him, along with his true body, was almost impossible. No matter what, Lin Yuan was also of the 8th layer, existing at the same realm as these invincible beings. Some special methods, such as the curse-killing skill, wouldn't even have an effect. That meant not only could they not completely kill him, but they also could not prevent him from resurrecting. Rest assured, the mind of the bug hive shadow flickered slightly. A cubic container appeared. The cube was transparent and faintly, one could see mist swirling inside it. This is memory poison, it said. The 5 of you working together to control the avatar of the Galaxy Star Lord, then inject this memory poison into its body, directed the voice. You don't have to worry about the rest, the shadow of the bug hive's psychic wave conveyed. Memory poison? The 5 8th layer invincibles were immediately startled. Memory poison is an extremely special artifact. It can destroy and twist beings on the level of memory. As is well known, with the doppelganger skill, the original body shares memories with the avatar. If memory poison is injected into the avatar, then the original Bodhi's memories will also be contaminated and twisted. By then, even if a supreme being intervened, reversing the course and resurrecting the individual would be meaningless. The rationale behind resurrection is for a supreme being to use the rule of time to reverse space-time, pulling the dead being from the past to the present. This achieves the goal of resurrection. However, no matter to which point in time they return, the moment the resurrected being comes back to the cosmic starry sky, they will receive all the memory information from right before their death. That means, even if a supreme being goes back to an even more distant past, to retrieve a being whose memories have not yet been contaminated, once that individual returns to the cosmic starry sky and synchronizes memories, they will be contaminated all over again. To use memory poison on just a human 8th layer, even if he is an exceptional genius? One of the invincibles muttered under their breath. Memory poison is extremely precious, and only a supreme being expending great effort and paying some price can possibly create it. Even for the wealth of the insect race, there probably aren't many instances of memory poison. Any within the top 10 of our created list merit the use of memory poison, commented the shadow. However, given the potential of the Galaxy Master, he is bound to have life-saving items. You 5 must strike with full force, leaving no opportunity, the shadow of the bug hive warned. While memory poison is fearsome, it targets only memories. Any other power, no matter how faint, could destroy memory poison. Therefore, only if the 5 8th layer invincibles completely subdue the Galaxy Star Lord and cut off all of his chances for resistance, can memory poison be used. Chapter 442 10 years, please subscribe. _2 Milky Way main star. Lin Yuan arrived at his inner world. Thunder Heart. Lin Yuan slowly merged the 8-star supreme cosmic rare treasure he had traded for 12,000 cubic universe crystals into his inner world. Strands of purple lightning began to fill the vast expanse of his inner world, spanning over 2 million square miles. The purple lightning was filled with a destructive aura, yet it also burst forth with vibrant vitality, making his entire inner world suddenly feel much more real. Worthy of being the Thunder Heart. Lin Yuan felt the changes in his inner world. A look of satisfaction appeared on his face. Even among cosmic rare treasures, there were significant differences between them. A cosmic rare treasure like the Thunder Heart was clearly superior to others like the Primordial Fire. This could be seen from their values. My current strength should be considered the first sequence below the invincible 8th layer, I suppose, Lin Yuan thought to himself. It's just that up to now, I'm still a bit short of fully comprehending the Taiyin rule. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged in his inner world, his thoughts fluctuating. From 4th rank onwards, Lin Yuan had begun to comprehend the Taiyin Taiyang rule. After that, 5th rank, 6th rank, 7th rank, and even now at 8th layer, it was the Taiyang rule that was always far ahead. Furthermore, Taiyin and Taiyang complement each other, forming Taiji, so even if the comprehension of the Taiyin rule was slightly weaker, it didn't affect Lin Yuan much. As a result, Lin Yuan's comprehension of the Taiyin rule was much less advanced than the Taiyang rule, and even with a complete understanding of the Taiyang rule, the conversion of Taiyin Taiyang through Taiji still couldn't rapidly lead to the comprehension of the Taiyin rule. No rush. I can feel it's coming soon. At most a few years or a bit over a decade. Lin Yuan had a good sense of it. Other evolvers would need to break through countless bottlenecks and shackles to fully comprehend the Taiyin rule. But he had the conversion of the Taiyang rule, having virtually no bottlenecks or shackles, so it was not an exaggeration to say it was a level plane. Soul-settling pearl. Lin Yuan glanced at the life-saving object given to him by Xiaxin Supreme Being. The soul-settling pearl guarded the spirit will, encompassing one's own memories. The intention of the Xiaxin Supreme Being was even if a Supreme Being made a move, the soul-settling pearl could block it for an instant, providing Lin Yuan an opportunity to self-destruct. However, it wasn't to say that the soul-settling pearl would only activate if a Supreme Being acted. Any attack or method that threatened Lin Yuan's spirit will or memories would be blocked by the soul-settling pearl. Of course, the Heart Demon from the Heart Demon Tribulation was not included in this. Milky Way Main Star Palace. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged, with crimson flames burning wildly inside him. Time passed, but it was hard to say how much. Lin Yuan opened his eyes. My body didn't collapse? According to the information Lin Yuan obtained from the mysterious gourd, fully absorbing the liquid inside the gourd was predicated on having an unharmed body persist until the end. In the past countless times, Lin Yuan's body had turned to dust, and he had returned with the blood rebirth divine skill. But now Lin Yuan's body had persisted. Indeed, it increased by 333 times. Lin Yuan carefully felt his body and his inner world and reached a conclusion. His inner world was now vast and boundless, almost 7 million square miles in area. This was because during this period Lin Yuan had comprehended more spatial models, causing the base size of his inner world to exceed 800,000 square miles. Then, after expanding by 333 times, he ended up with the nearly 7 million square miles large inner world he now possessed. Now, relying solely on my inner world, I am enough to crush ordinary 8th layer peaks. A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. The inner world of a normal 8th layer peak would be around 400,000 square miles. 400,000 square miles? 7 million square miles? It was more than just a crushing difference. Continue. Let's see the orange-yellow liquid. Lin Yuan's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the gray-red gourd in front of him. The gray-red gourd could condense 7 types of liquids, divided by color into red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue and purple. Lin Yuan had completely absorbed the crimson liquid. Next would be the orange-yellow liquid. Thinking this, Lin Yuan immediately reached out to grasp the gourd, turning the spout downward. Perhaps because of the contact with Lin Yuan's hand, the originally gray-red gourd slowly began to change. The red began to fade, replaced by yellow. Gray-yellow gourd. Drip drop. A drop of orange-yellow liquid coalesced at the mouth of the gourd. So beautiful. Lin Yuan gazed at the drop of orange-yellow liquid, vaguely sensing a miniature universe within it. He observed for a moment. Lin Yuan then swallowed the drop of orange-yellow liquid. Boom. The orange-yellow liquid turned into flames, quickly spreading throughout Lin Yuan's body. In an instant, Lin Yuan's body turned to ashes. After a few breaths, the blood rebirth divine skill activated, and Lin Yuan returned from the ashes. Lin Yuan was somewhat stunned. The enhancement is too great, causing me to be unable to endure it? Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and came to a conclusion. It seems that an inner world with a 500 million mile radius is at least required to withstand the enhancement from the orange-yellow liquid? Lin Yuan thought to himself. Unlike improving the inner world through grasping the space rules, the enhancement from the liquid inside the mysterious gourd is forceful, breaking some limits and constraints for improvement. Therefore one cannot step too far at one time. Lin Yuan must possess a certain foundation to endure a large enough enhancement. An inner world with a 5 million mile radius isn't difficult for me. Lin Yuan thought, after transforming with the red liquid, an inner world with a 500 million mile radius was equivalent to other evolvers' 150 million mile radius inner world. This was far from reaching the limit of the inner world. Outside the Milky Way main star. 5 figures hid in the depths of space. This planet, after a B-grade modification, can even hold off us for a few breaths. The leading 8th layer invincible spoke. These few breaths could potentially alert the Galaxy Master to something off, leading him to detonate his avatar directly. If that happened, their mission would end in failure. Although they would not be punished by the insect race, those treasure rewards would obviously have nothing to do with them. What do we do now? The second 8th layer invincible frowned. The Galaxy Master was within the planet. Although there were hundreds of millions of miles between them for 8th layer invincibles, one teleportation was all it took to arrive, nearly no different from being right in front of them. Of course, the B-grade modified Milky Way main star had the ability to block teleportation. They could at most teleport outside the planet. Wait for the Galaxy Master to come out on his own. The leading 8th layer invincible continued, we only have one chance. Once the Galaxy Master notices, consider it a failure. With that said, the 4 8th layer invincibles nodded slightly. The strength of the Galaxy Master was indeed inferior to that of any of them. But the Galaxy Master doesn't need to confront them directly. Just by successfully detonating his avatar, he would render the 5 of them helpless. The Galaxy Master might be young, but he wasn't foolish. Once he realized 5 8th layer invincibles were coming after him, he would definitely be able to surmise that they possessed some means to affect his true self. Simply killing an avatar wouldn't compel 5 8th layer invincibles to make a move. Though, deploying 8th layer invincibles in the fringe starfield is far less costly than deploying them deep within human civilization. In the fringe starfield, 8th layer invincibles are very likely to escape unscathed after an assassination. But deep within human civilization, not to mention 8th layer invincibles, even 9th rank powerhouses, as long as they dare to reveal themselves, are doomed to die. But what's the status of 8th layer invincibles? To deploy 5 at once. Even the peak clans wouldn't waste resources like that. The only possibility would be planning to kill the avatar and its true self together. Right, we only have one chance. We must seize it. The 5 8th layer invincibles exchanged glances. They immediately began waiting patiently. As long as the Galaxy Master didn't discover their ambush outside, he would come out sooner or later. That would be their chance. With this thought, the 5 8th layer invincibles felt a slight heat in their hearts. If the mission went smoothly, the reward from the insect race might just enable them to take that next step. And so, the 5 8th layer invincibles waited outside the Milky Way main star for 10 years. Chapter 443 Infiltration. Please subscribe. Outside the Milky Way main star. In the depths of space, 5 members of different species fused as 8th layer invincibles. They had essentially penetrated through 5 or 6,000 core spatial models. They could easily merge into layer upon layer of space. The space of the main world was vast and boundless, its layers number unknown, countless secret realms were hidden within certain layers, undiscovered for tens of thousands of years. What exactly is this Galaxy Master doing? Not coming out for 10 years? The 5 8th layer invincibles of the alien races wondered. For an 8th layer powerhouse, a retreat spanning decades or even centuries was not strange, but the Galaxy Master had just assumed control over the Milky Way star region. Logically, he would need to move around the region frequently. Where was the precedent for a new Star Lord hiding away on the main star and not showing himself? Indeed, as a Star Lord, one would certainly not take personal action in all matters, but to not even show one's face? No matter. We just need to wait. If not 10 years, then 50 years. If 50 years won't do, then 500 years. The leading 8th layer invincible, who hailed from the powerful dark-scaled race and was named Sarath, spoke out. The dark-scaled race was a member of the Insect Race Alliance, and the other 4 8th layer invincibles also came from several major races of the Insect Race Alliance. Among the insect race themselves, there was no concept of 8th layer invincibles. Each insect race hive could nurture countless warriors, and as long as there were enough 8th layer insect race warriors, even the invincibles would have to be wary. Therefore, the way to assess the strength of an insect race hive was by the layer it occupied, and the number of insect race warriors it had nurtured across various ranks. An 8th layer insect race hive was the strongest existence within the 8th layer. Given enough time and resources, it could produce an endless stream of 8th layer insect race warriors. Even if these warriors lacked a basic understanding of the rules, a quantitative change would cause a qualitative change. When there were enough numbers, they could sweep all before them. This was the insect race's technique for sweeping through the cosmic starry skies, known as the Sea of Insects tactics. Correct. It's just a matter of time. For us, even if we have to wait thousands of years, what of it? The 3rd 8th layer invincible said. They too yearned to step into the 9th rank, but facing the threshold of fusion rules, mere secluded cultivation was useless. Fusion rules, especially those involving cornerstone support rules, required not only sufficient personal strength but also the key moment of spiritual light. Wait 1,000 years. The 4th 8th layer invincible frowned slightly, sensing that something wasn't right. This Galaxy Master, with such terrifying talent and potential, ranks 7th even on the insect race's hit list. If he cultivates for thousands of years, there's the possibility he'll reach the 9th rank, or at least become an 8th layer invincible. He expressed his concerns. With this statement, the remaining 4 8th layer invincibles fell silent. If it were any other evolver, the notion of discerning some cosmic force and becoming an 8th layer invincible within a few thousand years would certainly be met with scoffs. Is cosmic force so easily discerned? All being 8th layer invincibles, they were well aware of the difficulty in comprehending cosmic force, not knowing how many perils they had faced, or how many miraculous chances they had encountered. Even with extraordinary talent, was it possible to discern cosmic force by merely sitting still and cultivating? But if it were the Galaxy Master? There were enough miracles associated with the Galaxy Master. If it were said that he secluded himself for hundreds to thousands of years and discerned some kind of cosmic force, it might actually be possible. We have no choice now, the dark-scale race Sarath said. We have only one opportunity. If the Galaxy Master is hiding on the main star and not coming out, we just have to wait. If we wait thousands of years and the Galaxy Master truly discerns some kind of cosmic force, then the insect race's mission should be considered a failure. Among the 8th layer invincibles, there were differences in strength, but the gap was not large. When 2 8th layer invincibles battled, it generally ended in a stalemate, and under normal circumstances, it was difficult for one to defeat the other. This was why individuals of this power level were known as 8th layer invincibles. Even if several 8th layer invincibles ganged up on one, the latter could easily retreat unscathed if they were outmatched. Therefore, in Sarath's view, if the Galaxy Master truly could discern some kind of cosmic force and become an 8th layer invincible, then their assassination plot would have failed. The memory poison targeted only the mind and memories. It would only be effective if the Galaxy Master lost all capacity to resist completely. Even a 9th rank powerhouse would find it difficult to make an 8th layer invincible lose their ability to resist entirely, let alone them. Of course, in the eyes of several 8th layer invincibles, The prospect of the Galaxy Master becoming an 8th layer invincible was just hopeful, not certain. They watched and waited outside the main star, the likelihood of their success still quite high. On the Milky Way main star. In the palace, Lin Yuan sat cross-legged. The talent I've displayed includes stepping into the 8th layer before the age of 100 and an astonishing growth rate, Lin Yuan thought to himself. Before I took office, my teacher warned me that the insect race might attempt an assassination on me. Lin Yuan glanced in the direction of the starry sky. He had spent 100,000 cubic universe crystals to remodel the main star to grade B, not just because as the economic and political center of the star domain the main star's security was vital, but also to make his strongholds as impregnable as a fortress. A grade B planet remodel could easily suppress most 8th layer powerhouses. In terms of defense, it was equally astonishingly strong. Even if a 9th rank powerhouse made a move, it could hold out for a brief moment. If an 8th layer invincible attacked even a group of them, it could withstand a few breaths' time. For a powerful individual, even a fraction of a moment could allow much to be accomplished. Lin Yuan could completely reveal his true body and avoid direct contact with a 9th rank powerhouse. Chapter 444 Lurking. Subscribe please. _2 And yet, Lin Yuan didn't believe that the insect race would deploy 9th rank powers to assassinate him. Deploying 9th rank combat power would be equivalent to tearing their faces off with human civilization. If the benefits were significant enough, the insect race wouldn't mind doing so, but based on the talent Lin Yuan had currently revealed, he was far from qualified. Therefore, Lin Yuan mainly needed to guard against invincible assassins of the 8th layer. In the face of invincible opponents from the 8th layer, Lin Yuan only needed to hide inside his main star. When Lin Yuan first arrived in the Milky Way star region, he swiftly and decisively cleared the largest unstable elements within the star field. It was to reduce the frequency of his own outings later on. The evolvers of human civilization upon reaching the 8th layer must guard the fringe star field. This is tradition, this is the rule, even the progeny of a supreme being is no exception. Lin Yuan thought to himself. Evolvers below the 8th layer are protected and supported by human civilization. Upon reaching the 8th layer they need to give back and guard the fringe starfield, which in fact isn't very dangerous. Talents like Lin Yuan who might be assassinated by different species are often granted numerous life-saving trump cards before heading to the fringe starfield. The soul-settling pearl that the Xianxia Supreme Being gave to Lin Yuan was such an item. Even if a Supreme Being from a different species took action, it could still preserve his chance of resurrection. Of course, if an evolver made a tremendous contribution to human civilization, such as becoming an evolutionary scholar, or nearing the status of evolutionary scholar, they could apply for exemption from the duty of guarding the fringe starfield. But such instances are extremely rare. With the potential that Lin Yuan had revealed, he actually qualified to apply. But if he did, and all other newly promoted 8th layer evolvers were guarding the fringe starfields, while Lin Yuan did not, it would be the same as announcing to the different species that the Galactic Star Lord had even greater secrets. Once so, even if Lin Yuan hid in the great rear of human civilization, it wouldn't necessarily be absolutely safe. These 10 years? Lin Yuan's thoughts shifted and a smile appeared on his face. 10 years in the main world allowed Lin Yuan to make rapid progress in all aspects. First and foremost was his understanding of rules, of the core models of space rules. Lin Yuan had already comprehended 2,932 types. One must know, 10 years prior, Lin Yuan's understanding of core space models was just over 2,000 types. Over the past 10 years, Lin Yuan had directly comprehended 900 core space models. The difficulty of comprehending these 900 core space models was unknowably higher than that of the initial 900. The 7,782 core space models become increasingly difficult to understand as one progresses, with the difficulty curve rising exponentially. The difficulty of understanding the 2000th core space model was far greater than that of the first. This was reflected in the expansion of his inner world. The later space models, once comprehended, contributed more significantly to the expansion of his inner world. And the 2,932 core space models directly expanded Lin Yuan's inner world to a radius of 2 million miles. This radius of 2 million miles refers to the normal size of an inner world. After the basic amplification by the crimson liquid, Lin Yuan's inner world reached a radius of 6,666 miles. With the basic amplification by the orange-yellow liquid, Lin Yuan's inner world now exceeded 10 million miles in radius. The orange-yellow liquid. Lin Yuan took out the mysterious gourd, which by now was a gray-yellow color and faintly emitted a mysterious aura. Whether it be the initial crimson liquid or the orange-yellow liquid, both provided a basic amplification to the body and the inner world. Compared to the crimson liquid, Lin Yuan absorbed the orange-yellow liquid much more slowly. In 10 years he had only absorbed a little more than half. Now, the basic amplification of my physical body and inner world has probably reached about 5 times? Lin Yuan estimated in his heart. 3.33 times from the crimson liquid, nearly twice from the orange-yellow liquid. The latter is less than the former because Lin Yuan hasn't fully absorbed the orange-yellow liquid. In theory, if Lin Yuan were to absorb the orange-yellow liquid completely, the final amplification could reach 6.66 times. It's terrifying. Even after more than a decade, Lin Yuan was still amazed by the effects of the mysterious gourd. It provided a basic amplification, not a mere addition or subtraction. Now Lin Yuan's inner world had reached 10 million miles. An inner world of 10 million miles. That's the limit for human evolvers, achievable only at the 8th layer after fully comprehending complete space rules. But fully comprehending complete space rules at the 8th layer was practically impossible, with some 9th rank powerhouses not having achieved it either. Yet Lin Yuan in a way had done it. Although he had not comprehended complete space rules, he nevertheless had one of the greatest benefits of doing so. An inner world with a radius of 10 million miles. And the inner world with a radius of 10 million miles was not Lin Yuan's limit. He could continue to increase it by a substantial margin. With an inner world of 10 million miles in radius, my current combat power, even if it's not quite on par with an invincible 8th layer, isn't far off either. Lin Yuan scrutinized himself. According to his speculation, if his inner world reached tens of millions of miles in circumference, even without comprehending some form of cosmic force, he could still forcefully contend with an 8th layer invincible. If his inner world reached hundreds of millions of miles, then he would be able to crush an 8th layer invincible. From time immemorial, the myth that 8th layer invincibles stood unbeatable at their level had belonged to them alone. Yet as long as Lin Yuan continued to cultivate, he could break this myth. It's a pity that the Taiyin rule is still lacking a bit. Lin Yuan sighed. In the past decade, much of his effort had been placed on absorbing the orange-yellow liquid and understanding space rules among other things. This caused a delay in fully comprehending the Taiyin rule. Even so, Lin Yuan felt that he was close. Even if he did nothing at all in at most 2 to 3 years, the Taiyin rule would naturally be comprehended. This is the essence of the complementary nature of yin and yang within the Tao of Taiji. When one side improves, the other side's improvement is a natural consequence. World-breaking origin force, already 36 strands. Lin Yuan's mind sank into the depths of his mind, looking towards that majestic and grand door to the myriad realms. 10 years ago, the amount of world-breaking origin force Lin Yuan had accumulated was only 17 strands, but now it had risen to 36 strands. At the moment, the Milky Way star region's development is stable, and there's no need for me to do anything, so I can undertake the 8th traversal. Lin Yuan thought. However, for the 8th traversal, Lin Yuan was still somewhat hesitant on how to choose. Lin Yuan's gaze shifted, looking towards a certain direction of the main star. There was a mountain peak where Ruan Wei, the 8th rank evolver who had actively come to follow Lin Yuan more than a decade ago, resided. At this moment, Ruan Wei stood on the mountain peak, with the space around her faintly distorting, a sign that she was trying to comprehend the core space model. Wrong. The direction is wrong. Lin Yuan immediately spotted the issue with Ruan Wei's approach. The space rules are vast and boundless, and the 7,782 core space models summed up by the predecessors of human civilization only explain some aspects of the essence of space rules. Each person who comprehends the core space models may derive different insights. Well then. Lin Yuan decided and vanished from the palace. Space? What exactly is space? Ruan Wei's eyebrows were tightly furrowed, and her aura began to destabilize subtly. At that moment, Lin Yuan appeared. He pointed a finger at Ruan Wei's brow. In an instant, the space fluctuations around them slowly dissipated, and the unstable aura within Ruan Wei gradually stabilized. Star Lord. Ruan Wei came to her senses and immediately saluted Lin Yuan with gratitude. Space is everything. Lin Yuan shook his head and spoke. As someone who had already comprehended nearly 3,000 core space models, Lin Yuan was fully qualified to correct Ruan Wei's deviation. Space is everything? Ruan Wei looked slightly bewildered. Space encompasses all. What you see as space is only an insignificant part. The cosmic starry sky, layer upon layer of space, is almost endless. When you comprehend space rules, never try to concretize space, otherwise it's easy to go astray, Lin Yuan cautioned. For evolvers trying to comprehend space rules, it's like a blind man feeling an elephant. No concrete standards exist, but assuming that space is like the elephant's leg just because one felt it would be a huge mistake. Thank you, Star-Lord. Ruan Wei felt inspired and bowed excitedly. She had been trying hard to sense the space rules, attempting to imagine what they looked like, not realizing she had been venturing into forbidden territory. Once she truly fixed a specific image of space in her mind going forward, it would be very difficult for her to make further progress in the space rules. Although Lin Yuan had only casually reminded her, without a doubt, he had steered Ruan Wei back onto the broadest path of the Great Tao. This was one reason why many evolvers were willing to follow a strong leader. Often just one piece of guidance from a strong being could pull them out of a dead end. One sentence might change a lifetime. Chapter 445 8th Shuttle, please subscribe. Advising Ruan Wei was indeed a casual act for Lin Yuan. For over a decade, Ruan Wei had been hustling around for the matters of the Milky Way star region. Lin Yuan had observed all this, and now realizing that the other party was on the wrong path, he didn't mind pulling him back. After all, for Lin Yuan, it was just a matter of a few words without costing him anything. He was just tired from his cultivation. It was merely a small effort. After wandering around outside for a while, Lin Yuan then returned to the palace. Lin Yuan connected his consciousness to the virtual world and arrived at the top of a mountain. Under the vault of the sky, that part of the body still existed, as if it had never changed through the ages. Continue to ponder. Lin Yuan scanned his surroundings. Many evolvers had started to attempt to cease their cultivation in favor of comprehending more evolution paths. But this group of evolvers only constituted a tiny minority, having to endure tremendous pressure from their spirit will and to comprehend various evolution paths. Even with his against heaven's understanding, Lin Yuan had spent quite some time achieving this. Other talented evolvers aiming to tread this path could not say it was utterly impossible. But that was a matter for many years later. This was also why when Lin Yuan told the Goddess of Wisdom about this method of comprehension, he only received 1,500,000 merit points in return. It was too difficult, just like giving an emperor a set of blueprints for a nuclear power plant during the feudal dynasty era. Honestly, Lin Yuan still felt that choosing to cultivate a certain evolution path and perfecting it to the final stage to become an ordinary member of the Magic Jade Tower was more reliable. This evolution path, life rules also have this aspect? Marvelous. Lin Yuan continued to ponder, comprehending one evolution path after another, dissecting them and realizing the parts that were helpful to him. Over the past decade, Lin Yuan had understood more than 20,000 kinds of evolution paths from this body segment, each evolution path greatly benefiting him. Just a part of the body contains nearly myriad evolution paths. Is this what a supreme being is? I wonder when I, Lin Yuan, can become such an existence? Throughout his continuous comprehension, Lin Yuan gradually sensed the heights at which the supreme being stood. It was incredible. That kind of ultimate control over a path, an eternal existence that even time couldn't erode. What kind of scenery would that be? Lin Yuan had also seen the Xiaxia supreme being, but the latter did not release any useful aura. Lin Yuan did not discern anything from him. This body segment, merely a projection through the virtual world, really creates unnaturally strong impacts on the outside world. Lin Yuan thought while continuing to ponder. Just a next stage member of the Magic Jade Tower, how many kinds of evolution paths do I need to comprehend thoroughly? I've already figured out more than 20,000, and it hasn't triggered yet? Could it be that I need 333,333 kinds? Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. To thoroughly comprehend 3,333 evolution paths and automatically become an ordinary member of the Magic Jade Tower. Lin Yuan had already figured out more than 20,000 kinds of evolution paths, and there was reason to speculate that the next stage members of the Magic Jade Tower required 333,333 kinds of evolution paths. Over 30,000 kinds of evolution paths. Although it's 10 times 3,333, the difficulty absolutely increased exponentially. Lin Yuan even doubted whether being an ordinary member of the Magic Jade Tower was already the limit, with no further stages of membership levels. It doesn't matter. 30,000 kinds or 300,000 kinds. As long as they help me, I will continue to comprehend. Lin Yuan gathered his thoughts and entered a deep state of contemplation. Songlan Star Virtual World. Lin Yuan's figure appeared, his parents and sister were already sitting there. Xiao Yuan. Mother Lu Qiong greeted him with a smile. Brother. Lin Yi looked up in admiration. 10 years had passed, and Lin Yi had grown up, accessing many matters of the upper echelons of the human civilization thanks to her relationship with Lin Yuan. This made her aware of her brother's extraordinary existence. He was a super exceptional genius, dazzling across the entire human civilization alliance, competing with the offspring of supreme beings. Because of Lin Yuan, Kanglan Star, an inconspicuous middle-grade life planet, leaped to become a hot star in both the Chiquan Star domain and the Annan Star alliance. Many powerful families from various star domains specially sent their descendants to Kanglan Star to expand their progeny. If Kanglan Star could give birth to a super exceptional genius like Lin Yuan, it indicated its special characteristics. Otherwise, why hadn't the higher-grade life planets given birth to such a super exceptional genius like Lin Yuan? This was the reason why the most popular industry on Kanglan Star turned out to be the fertility industry. Having their offspring born on Kanglan Star, even with a 1 in billion chance as long as they could produce descendants with 1/1,000,000th of the capability of a galactic star master, it was worth it. How's your cultivation going recently? Lin Yuan chatted casually with his parents. After stepping into the 8th layer, Lin Yuan began to pay attention to the cultivation status of his family members, even occasionally offering advice. His purpose in doing so, naturally, was to hope that his parents and sister could live longer. With the advanced technology of human civilization, even if one did not become an evolver, there were many ways to prolong life. But among all the methods to extend life, evolution, that is, becoming an evolver, was the most perfect and had the least side effects. Our aptitude is probably not very good, Xiao Yuan. We need a long time to comprehend those analysis videos you provided, said Father Lin Shoqing, shaking his head. In the beginning he had high hopes for the path of evolution, thinking he could produce a super genius like Lin Yuan. Chapter 446 The 8th Shuttle, Subscription Request. _2 At the very least, the genetic stock of the Lin family should be decent, right? But when the time truly came to step onto the path of evolution, it was unsurprisingly met with a fatal blow. Seeing that Lu Qiong also struggled with cultivation, Lin Shoqing didn't know why, but he felt slightly relieved. Still, we need to make an effort, Lin Yuan said. Unless absolutely necessary, Lin Yuan would not let his parents undergo that life-extending transformation technology. Work hard, work hard. Both of us will definitely make an effort. Lin Shoqing nodded, who wouldn't want to become a powerful evolver traversing the stars. Now that his own son had become a Star Lord, the cultivation conditions of the two of them were envied by many evolvers. Naturally, they would cultivate diligently. Xiao Yuan, you should also rest more often. Don't work too hard, the fringe starfield is also dangerous. After chatting for a bit, Lu Qiong reminded him with concern. Yes, Xiao Yuan, is it really necessary to go to that fringe starfield? Lin Shoqing muttered. He still hoped that his son would stay in the Chiquan Star domain. How dangerous is the fringe starfield? Those violent different species. It is indeed essential. Lin Yuan nodded with a smile. In fact, with Lin Yuan's current identity, especially as the founder of Martial Tao, he was eligible to apply to be exempted from the task of garrisoning the fringe starfield. Though the martial path evolutionary path was currently at the 7th rank, its potential was rated higher than some 8th layer evolutionary paths. Lin Yuan was not an evolution scholar, yet he surpassed one. If he really applied to the goddess of wisdom, it would surely be approved. However, that would be too conspicuous. Lin Yuan obediently heading to the fringe starfield to garrison. Even if he was targeted for assassination by different species, at most he would be invincible up to the 8th layer. But if Lin Yuan did not garrison the fringe starfield, who knows what would happen? The top seers among the different species would likely discern some information from traces. At that time, Lin Yuan might face an even more dangerous situation. Even the Chiquan Star Lord might not be able to protect him. After chatting with his parents for a while as usual, Lin Yuan's consciousness returned to reality. Door to the myriad realms. Lin Yuan's mind sank into the depths of his mind again, gazing at the majestic and grand door to the myriad realms. Actually, after stepping into the 8th layer, the door to the myriad realms is not without change. Lin Yuan observed the door to the myriad realms carefully. At the 8th layer, his spirit will experience a significant enhancement. He vaguely felt that even if he performed traversals, arriving in other dimensions, other worlds. With the aid of the door to the myriad realms, he could still establish a connection with the main world, instantly sensing everything happening around his physical body in the main world. This was essentially similar to Lin Yuan receiving information transmitted by the ancestral demon tree through the coordinates of the Tianqing world. If relying on Lin Yuan alone, it would be impossible to sense across dimensional layers to the other side. Probably even a supreme being could not do it. But with the aid of the door to the myriad realms, having this object as a medium, such a feat could be achieved. This is also good. Lin Yuan nodded slightly. During traversal, sensing every little detail around his physical body in the main world was definitely a good thing. Traversing to a lower-level world where the flow of time was immense, decades might pass there while maybe only a few minutes gone by in the main world. But as the number of traversals increased, the levels of the worlds Lin Yuan arrived at became higher, and the flow of time relative to the main world gradually reduced, resulting in the traversal duration becoming increasingly longer. What if a crisis occurred in the main world during Lin Yuan's traversal? Wouldn't he be powerless to resist? Being able to sense the information around his physical self, however, gave Lin Yuan the opportunity to make a choice. If a major crisis really occurred in the main world, possibly endangering his physical body, Lin Yuan would surely end the traversal forcibly, his spirit will returning to take over his body. Compared to losing one traversal, Lin Yuan valued his physical body more. Not to mention the price Lin Yuan had paid on this physical body. Simply because the physical body was the spirit will's guiding mark upon return, Lin Yuan would not allow anything to happen to it. I wonder if I can bring the gourd along on the traversal. With a thought, Lin Yuan began to communicate with the door to the myriad realms. The door to the myriad realms allowed for physical travel. Naturally, it could also transport items. It only required a certain amount of world-breaking origin force. During his 7th traversal, Lin Yuan had brought origin fine gold into the Tianqing world and placed it within the world's origin source for cultivation, saving him hundreds of years. The gourd was also an external object which, logically, could be taken through the interdimensional travels. Can it also for a strand of world-breaking origin force? Lin Yuan sighed in relief, not doubting whether the gourd could be transported but concerned that the door to the myriad realms would demand 10 or even dozens of strands of world-breaking origin force from him. Just a single strand of world-breaking origin force. Lin Yuan smiled faintly, now possessing nearly 40 strands of world-breaking origin force, which made him quite wealthy. I have nearly settled all matters. It's time for the 8th traversal. Lin Yuan collected his thoughts and made a decision. Each traversal significantly enhanced his strength. Being in the fringe starfield, Lin Yuan inevitably felt insecure and urgently needed to increase his strength. Which traversal method should I choose? Lin Yuan pondered internally. Firstly, the random traversal method was somewhat unstable for Lin Yuan at present. It was better avoided if possible. Excluding random traversal, the only option left was targeted traversal. There were 2 types of targeted traversal. The first required 100 strands of world-breaking origin force and allowed choosing the travel world based on personal requirements. The 100 strands mentioned were just the starting point. If the chosen world's tier was too high, the consumption of world-breaking origin force would only be higher. The second type required 10 strands of world-breaking origin force to descend into a world where he had coordinates. Among the world coordinates Lin Yuan had, only 2 were worth revisiting. One was the Tianqing world. The other was the spirit realm. The Tianqing world was his destination during the 7th traversal, where he had yet to thoroughly explore the boundless void. Meanwhile, the spirit realm was considered the upper realm of the central divine China world. Let's traverse to the spirit realm this time, Lin Yuan decided, knowing the immortal cultivation system would significantly aid the martial path evolutionary path, whereas encountering foreign evil gods in the boundless void was comparatively less beneficial. Thinking this, Lin Yuan sent a sliver of his spirit through the base of the door to the myriad realms, integrating the spirit realm world coordinates into the door. With the assistance of the door to the myriad realms, Lin Yuan arrived outside a vast and immense world. This world was familiar to Lin Yuan. During his time in the central divine continent, he had broken through the void several times to look upon this colossal entity from the outside. Compared to looking up at it back then, the sight was now much clearer. The mighty world forces in operation seemed capable of crushing everything. Are those million minor worlds beneath the spirit realm? Lin Yuan looked downward and saw countless lights, which he assumed were similar to the lower realms of central divine continent. It is said there are more than 1 million such lower realms. Above. Upon observing the spirit realm, Lin Yuan subconsciously looked upward. He indeed spotted a corner of an even more vast world. Is there another world? Could it be the legendary Immortal realm? Lin Yuan was startled. In the numerous secret texts of the Taoed Immortal sect in the Central Divine Continent, he had read about another immortal realm above the spirit realm. Let's focus on the spirit realm. Lin Yuan's strand of spirit dispersed. Outside the door to the myriad realms, Lin Yuan once again opened his eyes. The Immortal realm? Could that be the ultimate location of the Immortal cultivation system? Lin Yuan thought to himself. He knew little about the Immortal realm, to be precise. The Taoed Immortal sect had scant records of it. If it weren't for the occasional descents and communications of the Immortals of successive generations, they probably wouldn't have any records of the Immortal realm at all. My stay in the spirit realm will likely last around 900 years. Comparing time flow rates, about several hundred to one, after completing the stay about 1 or 2 years would have passed in the main world? Lin Yuan planned accordingly. Let's start. Without hesitation, Lin Yuan communicated with the door to the myriad realms, activated the spirit realm's world coordinates, and his willpower abruptly surged into the door. Chapter 447 Martial Ancestors Divine Radiance. Please subscribe. Confused and disoriented. Lost in a haze. By the time Lin Yuan's consciousness revived, he found himself lying on a bed. It's a person, Lin Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. With the experience of his sixth traversal, Lin Yuan realized, the vessel for his travel was not necessarily a human, it could be other species as well. Although there was nothing wrong with other forms of life, a human body offered Lin Yuan boundless possibilities. If he were to traverse into some special beings, he probably wouldn't even be able to practice martial Tao. My current situation. Lin Yuan began to sift through the original Buddhist memories. He had successfully arrived in the spirit realm, currently in Xianxia City, Xianwang Domain, Dongyun Province. Dongyun Province, Xianwang Domain? Basic information about the spirit realm floated through Lin Yuan's mind. He learned all this from the Taoed Immortal sect. The spirit realm was vast and endless, and its most prosperous areas housed 3,000 Tao provinces. Dongyun Tao Province was one of these 3,000. Dongyun Tao Province encompassed more than 20,000 great realms, among which the Xianwang Domain was one. Xianwang Domain, Lin Yuan pondered thoughtfully. If he remembered correctly, the Taoed Immortal sect was located in the Xianwang Domain, one of the 3 giants of this great realm. Didn't expect this kind of start. Lin Yuan thought to himself. The Taoed Immortal sect here was naturally the force established by a true immortal ancestor of the Central Divine China's Taoed Immortal sect. Xianxia City. Lin Yuan's expression turned strange. The original Buddhist memories revealed another name for Xianxia City. Wuxia City. A city demarcated by a significant figure from the Taoed Immortal sect. Most of the cultivators in Wuxia City didn't practice the Immortal cultivation system, but the martial Tao cultivation system. Martial Tao. Lin Yuan was almost certain that this martial Tao was the one he had spread in Central Divine China back in the day. In dealings with Xianxia Immortal, Lin Yuan proposed that the martial Tao cultivators in the further ages of the Central Earth world, if able to reach the 6th stage, could also use the Ascension platform to ascend to the spirit realm. It seemed now that Xianxia Immortal had kept his promise. At least several 100,000 years have passed. Lin Yuan silently thought. After his 6th traversal, he had undergone his 7th traversal, and also practiced in the main world for some time, although totaling no more than 30 years. But those were 30 years of the main world, with the significant differences in time flow between the 2 worlds, no less than several 100,000 years must have passed in the Central Divine China world. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the emergence of the 6th rank martial Tao, nor the founding of Xianxia City after ascending to the spirit realm. Xianxia City. Wuxia City. Lin Yuan's expression turned strange. During his 6th traversal, he had spread martial Tao and was known as the ancestor of martial arts, in addition to being called Jun Xiaoyao. Lin Yuan speculated that this Xianxia City might have been established by a few disciples he had taken in back then. Otherwise the coincidence was too great. Wonder if I can still see those old friends? Lin Yuan's thoughts drifted. According to the plans he had made before he left, it wouldn't be hard for his parents and elder siblings to attain the 6th rank. It's very likely they also ascended to the spirit realm. It's just unknown if they are still alive now. Merely having 6th rank refined void stage strength, they might not have survived hundreds of thousands of years. My current identity is the eldest young master of the Lin family, and the Lin family is a somewhat famous family in Xianxia City. Lin Yuan sat up from the bed and took a deep breath. Such abundant spiritual energy, Lin Yuan inwardly marveled. There were no spirit veins near Xianxia city, as within this city, cultivators of martial Tao occupied a majority. The demand for spirit veins was not as indispensable as it was for those who followed the immortal cultivation system. Yet even so, the concentration of spiritual energy Lin Yuan felt was no less than that of Mount Morality Immortal, which occupied the largest spirit vein of the central divine China world. No wonder those ancient saints of refined void all yearned to ascend to the spirit realm. With such an environment for cultivation, Lin Yuan could not help but shake his head. This was just Xianxia city. If he were in those sacred lands of cultivation, the richness of the spiritual energy would only be higher. It would even begin to transform into a higher form of energy, the immortal qi, only existent in the legends of central divine China. Am I also practicing martial Tao with this body? Lin Yuan carefully sensed his own body and concluded so. To enter the immortal cultivation system, one must have a spirit root, that is an ironclad rule. But even in the spirit realm, the vast majority of beings still possess no spirit root, and most of those who do have a spirit root are of low quality. If they barely step into the qi cultivation stage, at most they would stop at foundation establishment. This was the foothold for Xianxia city. The martial Tao cultivation system has no requirement regarding spirit roots. As long as your blood and qi are abundant, you can cultivate. That brought hope to a significant portion of ordinary people without spirit roots. Even some cultivators with low-quality spirit roots, upon realizing they had significant talent in martial Tao, would switch their practice to martial Tao. Overall, today's martial Tao cultivation system is just a more niche system of cultivation, circulating only within the Shenhuang domain and unknown outside of it. That's quite normal. Although martial Tao doesn't require a spirit root, its upper limit is far below that of Immortal Path. Naturally, cultivators with potential would first choose Immortal Path, and only consider martial Tao after realizing there was no hope in Immortal Path. If one can cultivate immortality, who would practice martial arts? Before I left behind 12 ways to break through to the 7th rank martial Tao. These methods weren't perfect and could hardly compete with Tao integration stage of the Immortal Path, Lin Yuan silently thought. Currently, the 7th rank he was cultivating was the perfect 7th rank, integrated and perfected in the main world. Chapter 448 Martial Ancestors Divine Radiance. Please subscribe. Too much stronger than the 12 7th rank paths left in Central Divine Continent. And even so, the 7th rank is the upper limit on the martial Tao path, and naturally, it's far inferior when compared to the immortal cultivation system with its boundless potential. Xianxia city is under the protection of Dao Immortal sect, and there are many families within the city at present, but the strongest is still the martial temple. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. The martial temple is the sacred ground of Xianxia city, said to be related to the martial ancestor. At the founding of Xianxia city, several practitioners at the 7th stage of martial Tao joined hands to establish the martial temple, promoting the martial Tao cultivation system until today. Without the foundation of the martial temple continuously cultivating martial Tao cultivators, whether the martial Tao cultivation system would still exist is a matter of debate. What I need to do first now is to improve my strength. Lin Yuan's thoughts converged. This body also practiced martial Tao, but the realm was too low. It hadn't even entered the Grand Master realm, not to mention stepping into the 2nd layer. There was still a long way to go to complete the 1st rank. After a brief cultivation session, having corrected many mistakes in the original owner's cultivation, Lin Yuan stepped out of the room. Martial Tao is not like the Immortal Path. It doesn't have an indispensable thirst for spiritual energy, but that doesn't mean that cultivation of martial Tao doesn't need resources. On the contrary, martial Tao has a great demand for resources, especially at the 6th rank, where one needs to open an inner world, consuming resources that can be described as vast as mountains and seas. Of course, opening the inner world at the peak of the 6th rank, Lin Yuan's creation of the perfect 7th stage path, has led the martial Tao cultivation system in the spirit realm to stop at the 7th rank. Without Lin Yuan's further contributions, being able to stay intact is already good enough. The vastness of the spirit realm with the immortal cultivation system occupying the mainstream spot, alongside many other cultivation systems, makes the presence of martial Tao rather unremarkable. Lin Yuan walked out of the courtyard and was quickly spotted by a maid. "Young master, you're awake?" This maid had the strength of the foundation establishment stage and was cultivated by the Lin family from a young age. Even a family with roots in Xianxia City like the Lin family preferred the immortal cultivation system at heart. Lin Yuan's parents rushed over. "Chang'er, are you all right?" A beautiful woman approached and after carefully examining Lin Yuan, said with joy on her face, "How do you feel now?" "Not bad," Lin Yuan nodded. According to memory, the original owner loved the martial Tao cultivation system very much, but unfortunately due to being impatient for quick success, he encountered problems during cultivation and fell into a coma. As a result, Lin Yuan's consciousness gradually awakened. "Chang'er, you have a spirit root. Even if it's just a triple spirit root, you can cultivate on the immortal path. Why fixate on martial Tao?" The original owner's father, named Lin Jianpain, started the Lin family from scratch and is considered a model of success in Xianxia City. With more than 10 branches of the Lin family business in Xianxia City, Lin Jianpain was well informed and knew the advantages of the immortal cultivation system were far superior to martial Tao. Beyond the Shenhuang domain, among the 3,000 Dao states, the real stage is occupied by those proud children who cultivate the immortal cultivation system. Lin Jianpain didn't have high hopes for his son, but at the very least he didn't want him to suffer through martial Tao. Practicing martial Tao requires physical and body refining, and the torment suffered is definitely greater than that of cultivating on the immortal path. "I like martial Tao," Lin Yuan said casually. This was also the original owner's thought. Now that Lin Yuan's consciousness had awakened, he had no doubts about cultivating martial Tao. As for the immortal path, it could indeed be of reference later on, but his foundation would definitely remain in martial Tao. "You like martial Tao?" Lin Jianpain was somewhat worried. His son was good at everything and had been extremely sensible since he was a child, but he was very stubborn. Once he decided on something, no one could pull him back. Most of those who practiced martial Tao did so because they either had no spirit root or their spirit root quality was too low, and they had no choice but to choose martial Tao. But Lin Yuan? Though the triple spirit root talent was not strong, it wasn't weak either. With a bit of luck, he might well step into the golden core stage. Duh. Lin Jianpain raised his right hand, and suddenly a figure emerged from the shadows. "Take some of those century-old, millennium-old blood spirit Ganoderma, white jade ginseng, and other spiritual medicines from the various branches, and give them to Chang'er for cultivation." In the early stages of martial Tao cultivation, the primary focus is on forging the body and blood, and this stage can actually be shortened through external means. "Yes." The figure named Da bowed slightly. "Da." Lin Yuan glanced at the figure standing behind Lin Jianpain. "Third rank of martial Tao?" Lin Yuan thought to himself. In Xianxia City, the number of martial Tao cultivators is the greatest. Although Lin Jianpain is reluctant to have his own son practice martial Tao, in fact, compared to the immortal path, the martial Tao cultivation system still has a significant influence in the Shenhuang domain. After all, it has produced several 7th-stage martial Taoists who can be considered on par with Unity Realm true immortals. Lin Jianpain was worried that his son might neither understand martial Tao cultivation completely, nor ruin his health by practicing incorrectly. "Son, ponder on your martial Tao well. Your father will find you a master in the next few days." Lin Jianpain patted Lin Yuan on the shoulder, then left with the beautiful woman. Find a master? Lin Yuan thought about it and decided not to refuse. Given the previous instance where he fainted from training too hard, if he were to refuse again, it would probably cause his parents to worry. Lin Jianpain brought the beautiful woman to a grand hall. The beautiful woman, Shenzhen, gave Lin Jianpain a sideways glance. "What kind of master do you intend to find for Chang'er?" In Xianxia City, although martial Tao cultivators are as plentiful as carps crossing the river, true martial Tao experts are scarce. Those of the 4th stage and above can be counted on one's fingers. If my son Lin Jianpain wishes to practice martial Tao, he must certainly have the best. After contemplation, Lin Jianpain made a decision. I plan to send Chang'er to the martial temple to experience the martial ancestors' divine radiance. Martial ancestors' divine radiance? Shenzhen blinked, then quickly realized, all right, old Lin, are you really willing to part with that much? Undoubtedly, the place where martial Tao cultivators are most concentrated in the whole of Xianxia City is the martial temple. As the foundation for martial Tao cultivators, the few 7th-stage martial Tao experts who established the martial temple intended to ensure the continuation of the martial Tao cultivation system legacy and specially left behind several streaks of divine radiance. These streaks of divine radiance expound on the essence of martial Tao as understood by this group of 7th-stage martial Taoists, which is also associated with the mysterious martial ancestor. Hence, it is known as the martial ancestor's divine radiance. The martial ancestor's divine radiance serves two purposes. One is to let the experiencer closely feel the essence understood by the 7th-stage martial Taoists. The second is to determine which aspect of the martial Tao cultivation system the experiencer specializes in. Especially the first purpose, it's equivalent to receiving indirect guidance from those few 7th-stage martial Tao experts. 7th-stage martial Tao experts, shoulder to shoulder with Unity Realm true immortals, stand as significant figures overlooking the Xianxia domain at this level, regardless of whether they are cultivators of the immortal path or not. Of course, to enter the martial temple and comprehend the martial ancestor's divine radiance, one must either possess astonishing talent to get the temple's attention, or otherwise, one has to find a back door. So-called backdoor entry essentially means paying an extra price to get the chance to follow behind a disciple with astonishing martial talent, to also experience the radiance, to get a share of the remaining martial ancestor's divine radiance left by others. Still, with the Lin family scale, for Lin Yuan to experience the martial ancestor's divine radiance even once would probably cost the family a significant portion of their wealth. This is still with the Lin family having established roots in Xianxia City for many years. Otherwise, outside forces would not even have the opportunity to find a back door. Name, Lin Chang Lin Yuan. Identity, holder of the door to the myriad realms gate, bound talent, heaven-defying comprehension, divine power, blood resurrection, current status, consciousness descent, remaining residence time, 920 years in the room. Lin Yuan glanced at the ethereal characters in the bottom left corner of his vision. This stay is for 920 years? Lin Yuan was quite satisfied in his heart. Such a long time should be enough to nearly establish the 8th-stage martial Tao. I'm still too weak now. To recover to the 8th layer level, he'll need a substantial amount of resources. Lin Yuan grabbed a large half-millennium Ganoderma and swallowed it, his body quickly absorbing the surging essence. From the 1st to 6th rank there's no need to worry, but the 6th rank peak? 7th rank? That requires creating an inner world, and for that I must rely on a great amount of resources. In the main world, Lin Yuan had used countless tons of scarlet spirit liquid to create his inner world. Forget it. Let's take it one step at a time. Lin Yuan gathered his thoughts and continued his cultivation. Chapter 449 I am the martial ancestor, feel the divine radiance, please subscribe. Several days later, Lin Yuan was still cultivating, when his mother, Xinzhen, dragged him out of his room. Chang'er, I'm taking you to a good place, said Mother Xinzhen with a hint of mystery in her voice. A good place? Lin Yuan felt quite helpless in his heart. So, the two of them went outside. Father Lin Jianpain had been waiting for a long time. His face was full of solemnity. This time we are going to the martial temple, he said. Chang'er, once you're there you must not cause any trouble, Lin Jianpain instructed. Although the martial Tao cultivation system was far less influential than the immortal cultivation system. In Xianxia City the martial temple was the only heaven, controlling everything, commanding everything. Even looking across the Xianxia domain, the martial temple was one of the most powerful forces under the banner of the Morality Immortal sect, with several 7th-stage martial Tao individuals whose combat power was not the least bit inferior to ordinary Unity Realm true immortals. The martial temple? Lin Yuan's heart stirred slightly. He had long speculated that the martial temple must have been established by the disciples he had taken on in the past, such as Li Qing and others. Its purpose was to ensure the heritage of the martial Tao cultivation system. The center of Xianxia City. The towering Xiaoyao Mountain. This was the location of the martial temple, the very heart of the entire Xianxia City. Those 7th-stage martial Tao founders of the martial temple were often at war for the Morality Immortal sect, and the strongest within the martial temple were only at the 6th-stage martial Tao, but that was enough to look down upon the entire Xianxia City. Among tens of thousands of cities in the Xianxia domain, Xianxia City ranked in the top 100. And that was because of the presence of the martial temple. Just then, a spirit vessel flew near. Lin Jianpain, Lin Yuan, and the others stepped out. Elder of the martial temple, my son wishes to experience the martial ancestor's divine radiance. Lin Jianpain pulled out a token. It was bronze in color with the character martial written on it. Go ahead, said the guards at the entrance to Xiaoyao Mountain after scanning the token. They opened the Great Formation. Seeing this, Lin Jianping once again thanked them and then led Lin Yuan and Shenzhen inside. Another one using connections. The guards sneered after Lin Jianping and the others had disappeared. Ever since the establishment of Xianxia City, every so often, many would come to experience the martial ancestors' divine radiance. Among these people, a very small portion came because of their astonishing martial talent and were invited by the martial temple to experience the divine radiance. But the majority were there to freeload the divine radiance. The higher-ups of the martial temple did not interfere with this, first because it contributed to the income of the martial temple and second, because it had no impact on themselves. Once the martial ancestors' divine radiance was activated, the divine radiance would envelop the area for a fixed time, prioritizing those disciples with astonishing martial talent to experience it first. They would go first and then the rest would follow. Having connections also requires strength to use those connections, sighed another guard. To experience the guidance of the martial ancestors' divine radiance, indirectly receiving the guidance of a martial Tao expert on a par with true immortals, wouldn't you want that? Said the guard, shaking his head. Of course I would, replied the first guard after a moment of silence, admitting the truth. The guidance of a powerful figure was too important. Especially since the martial ancestors' divine radiance not only provided guidance but could also determine the aspects of martial Tao the experiencer excelled in. Xiao Mountain. At first glance, Lin Yuan saw a massive mountain peak, with thin strands of aura scattered throughout the air, clearly indicating that outsiders daring to intrude would be suppressed by forces from all around the very first moment. Combining martial Tao methods with immortal Dao formations, this is interesting, Lin Yuan observed, discerning much of the essence of Xiaoyao Mountain with just a glance. Chang'er, don't look around so much. Lin Jianping saw Lin Yuan's gaze and quickly reminded him. Inside Xiaoyao Mountain, figures from the martial temple would pass by from time to time. If Lin Yuan's gaze attracted the attention of one of these prominent individuals, it would be an unwarranted disaster. The group followed the path and soon arrived at a teleportation formation. Given the vastness of Xiaoyao Mountain, reaching the martial temple at the summit would take at least half a day, so there were usually teleportation arrays at the foot of the mountain. With an indication from a martial temple disciple, Lin Yuan and the other two stepped into the teleportation formation and in a flash, arrived at the summit. There are quite a few people here, Shenzhen curiously looked around. She noticed many people gathered in small groups, conversing in low tones. In the distance, a massive wall stood erect. That was where the martial ancestors' divine radiance was activated. It was currently in a closed state and no one was allowed to enter. It's not just us who have come to experience the martial ancestors' divine radiance. Xianxia City is so big, many powerful families send their scions whenever the martial ancestors' divine radiance is activated, Lin Jianping said in a low voice. The Lin family was only somewhat well known in Xianxia City, which was nothing compared to the real power players. Chapter 450 AM The Martial Ancestor, Feel the Divine Radiance, please subscribe. Understand Ouyang Song? Is he the genius with the greatest martial talent in Xianxia City over the past 50 years? It is said that Ouyang Song has comprehended the power of thunder, a force renowned for its lethality. Other people began whispering among themselves. Most of them had brought their descendants through back doors, none of whom could compare to Ouyang Song in terms of martial talent. Top Xiaoyao Mountain. At another location, several figures were sitting cross-legged, staring at the location enveloped by the martial ancestors' divine radiance. I hope that the opening of the martial ancestors' divine radiance this time can bring a few talented individuals to our martial temple, the leading figure sighed and slowly said. The martial ancestors' divine radiance contains the insights into martial Dao from 3 venerable elders, in addition to the interpretations of that martial ancestor. Any cultivator, as long as they cultivate martial Dao and experience the martial ancestors' divine radiance, will inevitably gain something, the second figure spoke. That martial ancestor. The other few upon hearing these words appeared slightly somber. They had heard of the name of the martial ancestor from the mouths of 3 7th-stage martial Dao elders. The martial Dao cultivation system today in its current scale is the result of negotiations between that martial ancestor and a true immortal from the Dao Immortal sect. However, from the beginning to the end, all the martial Dao cultivators of the martial temple had never seen the martial ancestor. On the plaza below, The many who came through back doors to experience the martial ancestors' divine radiance start interacting while waiting. This martial ancestors' divine radiance, left by 3 martial Dao experts of the martial temple comparable to true immortals, actually originates from the martial ancestor. Exactly, otherwise why name it martial ancestors' divine radiance? Martial ancestor? I've heard this name but never heard any specific deeds. I thought it was made up. Could such a person really exist? Haha, I do know a bit about this. Today's 3 mighty figures from the martial temple, comparable to true immortals, ascended from the lower realms. And that martial ancestor was the master of these 3 7th-stage martial Dao powerhouses in the lower realms. The master of 3 true immortals? What realm is the martial ancestor in now? Not sure. Those 3 of the 7th rank after ascending, once sought the martial ancestor, but it all came to nothing in the end. Perhaps that martial ancestor did not ascend, or perhaps he did ascend but got trapped somewhere. The spirit realm is boundless with various dangers everywhere. It's very normal. Many discussions followed. Lin Jianpain remained silent. Martial ancestor is an incredible being. Lin Jianpain finally spoke after a long time. You don't even know the martial ancestor. How do you know he's incredible? Shenzhen glanced at Lin Jianpain. That you just don't understand. Lin Jianpain shook his head. Martial ancestor? Lin Yuan was listening on the side. 3 7th-stage martial Dao? Is it Li Qing? Or other disciples? Lin Yuan pondered in his mind. The white jade pavilion he had established had taken in hundreds of disciples, personally teaching them martial Dao. But those who were hopeful of stepping into the 7th rank weren't many, just a few. At another location on the mountaintop, several high-ranking officials of the martial temple were observing the martial ancestors' divine radiance. Martial Dao prodigy Ouyang Song sat cross-legged, closely feeling the divine radiance emitted by the 7 statues in front of him, his expression shifting unpredictably. A moment later, from the 7 statues, the first one on the left emitted 30% of its light. Martial Dao prodigy Ouyang Song suddenly opened his eyes, gasping for air. Not bad. This statue symbolizes the way of slaying. 30% of the radiance is quite good. Xianxia City hasn't seen such a talent in 100 years. The leading figure nodded in approval. These 7 statues, embodying different aspects of martial Dao, could help the experiencer choose their future path. As for the emitted light, it was testing the experiencer's compatibility with martial Dao. 30% light was considered rare. Admit Ouyang Song as an inner sect disciple, focus on cultivating him, another figure spoke. Inner sect disciple? Acceptable, if it reached 40% light, he could completely be taken as a core disciple. What a pity. Being an inner sect disciple is also not bad. He has prospects of advancing to the 4th stage martial Dao. Several figures discussed for a while and finally made a decision. Next. One by one, martial Dao prodigies experienced the martial ancestors' divine radiance. Ultimately, 3 became martial temple inner sect disciples, 1 became a core disciple and 6 became ordinary disciples. In conclusion, the spectacle of the martial ancestors' divine radiance could essentially be considered as ended. As for those still queuing up to experience the divine radiance, they were mostly backdoor entries, far from meeting the qualifications to be admitted into the martial temple. However, the divine radiance of the martial ancestor was extremely special. Even without any martial talent, just coming into contact with it could still provide a significant boost to one's abilities. Facing the martial ancestor's divine radiance, there were no prerequisites. Even cultivators on the immortal path could feel its effects. It's my turn, it's my turn. Hurry up in front, the divine radiance is about to extinguish. Those who had entered through the back door to experience the divine radiance began urging each other on. Those martial prodigies who felt the divine radiance did not dare to utter half a word, for even a single interjection could result in their expulsion from the martial temple. But now those entering were all backdoor entrants. With the time of exposure to the divine radiance being fixed, naturally it was better the quicker the front moved. On another side of the mountain peak, several high-ranking officials from the martial temple watched patiently for a while. They soon lost interest. Those who entered through the back door to experience the divine radiance generally had a compatibility with martial Tao no higher than 10%. The ancient ancestor once said, "All creatures are entitled to cultivate the martial Tao," a figure murmured to himself. This was also why they tolerated those who entered through the back door to experience the divine radiance. Just because you are not a martial prodigy, doesn't mean you cannot receive guidance from the martial ancestors' path. At the lower plaza, it was finally Lin Yuan's turn to enter and feel the martial ancestors' divine radiance. Son, don't stress. Just feel it casually. Xinjun cheered Lin Yuan on. Just feel it casually? Lin Jianping's lips twitched. This was an opportunity he had exchanged for with almost half of his wealth. Yet, to ease Lin Yuan's nerves, Lin Jianping still said, "Your mother is right, don't be under any pressure." Okay, got it. Lin Yuan nodded and proceeded through the gate. Hum. 7 statues emitted a faint divine glow. The old man in a black robe stood beside them. Sit here and close your eyes to feel it, the man in the black robe said calmly, his tone unfluctuating, clearly having repeated this many times. Sit over there? Lin Yuan glanced at the 7 statues, his brow slightly furrowed, because he had no idea how to feel it. To others who came here, the divine radiance seemed filled with endless mysteries. But for Lin Yuan, that martial ancestor's divine radiance was something he had grown tired of centuries ago. Just like a high school student being asked to do middle school problems would need intense concentration, a PhD student could see through them at a glance. Conversations about contemplating it were unnecessary. How should I feel it? Lin Yuan thought for a moment, then decided to ask once more. Just close your eyes, the divine radiance will naturally resonate with you. The man in the black robe patiently explained. All right. Lin Yuan, following the norm, sat before the statues. The omnipresent martial ancestor's divine radiance quickly enveloped Lin Yuan, gradually beginning to resonate with him. However, the next moment, all 7 statues stalled simultaneously. Even the omnipresent divine radiance suddenly froze. What? The man in the black robe, who was expecting Lin Yuan to finish quickly so the next person could commence, suddenly widened his eyes, staring incredulously at the scene before him. Boom, boom, boom. Following the initial pause, all 7 statues emitted a brilliance, the light from each filling to 12/10 of their capacity. Threads of the divine radiance of the martial ancestor continuously wrapped around Lin Yuan, as if commanded, gathering at his feet. What exactly did you feel from the divine radiance? The black-robed man's spirit trembled as he looked at Lin Yuan, who seemed divine, and asked unconsciously. What kind of divine light? Lin Yuan glanced at the man in the black robe. He remained silent. I am the martial ancestor. What divine radiance to feel? Chapter 451. He was born for the martial Tao. Please subscribe. On the other side of the summit, the initially disinterested figures, each occupied in their own conversations, barely paid attention to the one sensing the martial ancestor's divine radiance. There was no helping it. Behind the first group of invited martial Tao geniuses, many of the censors who had got in through back doors performed dismally. None of them had a martial Tao compatibility of more than 10%. If the martial ancestor's divine radiance wasn't so crucial, requiring their supervision upon activation, they probably would have left a long time ago. It's about to end. The leading figure was the great supreme elder of the martial temple, ranking just below the 3 who were out waging war in the 7th stage martial Tao. He glanced casually at the sight of the martial ancestor's divine radiance below. The next moment, the great supreme elder's pupils constricted sharply. In his sight, strands of the martial ancestor's divine radiance bubbled up as one divine statue after another began to emit 12-fold radiance. For a moment, inside the walls at the site where the 7 divine statues were placed, the martial ancestor's divine radiance nearly spilled out. What's this? The great supreme elder's heart shook with awe. The only possible reason for the martial ancestor's divine radiance to be actively attracted was the presence of a censor with overwhelmingly powerful martial talent, causing the full revival of the divine radiance. This event had taken place several times over the past 100,000 years, but the attraction to the martial ancestor's divine radiance never reached the scale of today. Divine statues blooming with 12-fold light, and 7 statues at that. Am I dreaming? Another supreme elder murmured to himself. The 7 divine statues represent 7 different directions of martial Tao, such as prowess in killing, excellence in defense, mastery over domains, and so on. Since the establishment of the martial temple, indeed, there had been examiners who caused several divine statues to simultaneously bloom with radiance, but that was at most 3 or 4 statues, and each statue's radiance did not exceed 70%. Like now, 12-fold radiance? And all 7 statues at that? Genius. The strongest talent ever since the founding of our martial temple. The several supreme elders quickly recovered, and as strong martial Tao 6th rank experts, they should not have been so flustered. But the scene unfolding before them was simply too inconceivable. In front of the 7 divine statues, Lin Yuan quietly felt the submission emanating from the martial ancestors' divine radiance. The so-called martial ancestors' divine radiance was nothing more than the traces of the Tao and Law that Lin Yuan had left on the 7 divine statues, now stimulated by an external force. It was sensitizing him to the most suitable physique and talent for martial Tao cultivation. Ever since the consciousness descent, Lin Yuan was not only steadily recovering his strength but also allowing this physical body to undergo metamorphosis. As the once ancestor of martial arts, the direction in which Lin Yuan would transform his body would undoubtedly be the most suitable for martial Tao. The performance of the martial ancestors' divine radiance merely reflected the breadth of an ultimate physique within the martial Tao cultivation system. Such a physique was basically impossible to be born naturally, only appearing under the guidance of Lin Yuan, the ancestor of martial arts. Of course, this was unknown to outsiders, and even those 3 7th-rank old ancestors were clueless. By the side, the elder in a black robe was still engulfed in incredible shock. Having activated the martial ancestors' divine radiance so many times, he had never felt such a scene within the divine radiance before. And the fact that all 7 statues burst forth with 12-fold light also left this black-robed elder somewhat befuddled. For an examiner to make a statue shine with 12-fold light was rare enough for tens of thousands of years, but to have all 7 statues do so? Just as the black-robed elder wondered what to do next, several figures appeared silently beside him, their eyes burning with fervent gaze upon Lin Yuan. A martial Tao talent the likes of which had never been seen before. Heaven blesses our martial temple, heaven blesses our martial Tao. These sudden figures were the supreme elders of the martial temple. Supreme elders, the elder in the black robe couldn't help but startle. Then he quickly realized. If even he had noticed the anomaly in the martial ancestors' divine radiance, how could the supreme elders have missed it? You may leave. The lead great supreme elder gave the black-robed elder a glance. Yes. The black-robed elder bowed immediately and quickly exited. Young friend. The great supreme elder conjured a trace of a gentle smile and greeted Lin Yuan before he seriously said, I wonder if you would be willing to join our martial temple? Having said this, including the great supreme elder himself, a tinge of nervousness appeared on all their faces. With the influence of the martial temple, they could indeed force Lin Yuan to join. As the heaven of Xianxia city, who would dare refuse the martial temple's decree? But that was something they did to outsiders. Given Lin Yuan's currently revealed terrifying talent, he would likely take charge of the martial temple in the future. In such a case, who would dare to coerce? Did they not fear retribution later on? For a peerless martial Tao genius who could revive the martial temple, coercion was the most foolish method. Join the martial temple? Lin Yuan looked towards the supreme elders of the martial temple. In fact, with his grasp over his own powers, he could have completely blocked the sensing of the martial ancestors' divine radiance. But Lin Yuan did not. The aim was to attract the attention of the martial temple and then join it, utilizing the temple's vast cultivation resources to swiftly recover his strength. The martial temple existed precisely to transcend the martial Tao cultivation system. It was inherently a force under Lin Yuan's command. It even matched part of Lin Yuan's plans for the future. In this journey he had also planned to spread the martial path evolutionary path. With the martial temple at his disposal, Lin Yuan could avoid many detours. There was no need to start from scratch to build a force and then propagate the martial Tao. I am willing, Lin Yuan nodded and said. Willing? The great supreme elder and the other supreme elders exchanged glances, their hearts easing with immense relief. Chapter 452 He born for the martial Tao. Please subscribe. _2 Outside the walls, everyone was anxiously waiting. The duration of the martial ancestors' divine radiance was limited. The more time wasted by those in front, the less time available for those behind to experience it. Now, more than half an hour had passed since the last person entered, and if it dragged on much longer, the martial ancestors' divine radiance would likely come to an end. Chang'er couldn't have caused any trouble, could he? Lin Jianping's heart skipped a beat, and he could only hope silently. Outside, with the Lin family's means, as long as the trouble Lin Yuan caused wasn't too great, they could basically smooth things over. But this place was the martial temple, where even a randomly grabbed person had more background and status than the Lin family. If Lin Yuan caused trouble here, Lin Jianpain felt his scalp tingle at the thought. It couldn't be. Shenzhen quietly reassured him from beside. However, similar worries surfaced in her heart. The time Lin Yuan spent perceiving the martial ancestors' divine radiance was extraordinarily long. It was hard not to let one's thoughts drift in that direction. Before long, the old man clad in the black robe came out. To everyone he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the martial ancestors' divine radiance has ended. You may all return." Ended? So soon? It wasn't this quick in previous years, was it? Although the waiting crowd felt extremely reluctant, they dared not question it. What kind of joke would that be, to question the martial temple? Did they no longer wish to live? It's over? Upon hearing this, Lin Jianpain looked confused. Where's my son? He hadn't seen Lin Yuan come out from the beginning to the end. Lin Yuan hadn't emerged, yet it was over? Lin Jianpain wanted to ask but didn't dare to. He could only continue to wait in place. Soon the others began to leave one after the other. It's over. Chang'er must have really gotten into trouble. Lin Jianpain felt a chill in his heart, and Shenzhen's face also looked troubled. If there had been no trouble, their son should have come out by now. Just as the two decided to summon the courage to inquire what had happened, the black-robed old man hurried over to Lin Jianpain and Shenzhen and said with a somewhat respectful demeanor, "Are you Lin Chang's parents? Please come with me." The tone of the black-robed old man was gentle, utterly lacking the haughtiness he exhibited towards those other people. He was well aware that given Lin Yuan's performance during the perception of the martial ancestors' divine radiance, his future status in the martial temple could be described as immeasurable. Therefore, at this moment, his attitude towards Lin Yuan's parents had to be without any overstepping, or else he would be laying the groundwork for his own trouble. "We are," Lin Jianpain hastily said. This black-robed old man was a steward of the martial temple, and elders and patriarchs from big families in Xianxia city were as reserved as grandsons meeting their grandfathers in front of him. Yet now, such an important figure was speaking to him with such a gentle tone. This made Lin Jianpain feel as if he were dreaming. After exchanging a few brief pleasantries, the black-robed old man straightforwardly said, "Lin Chang is a martial Tao prodigy, you need not worry." The black-robed elder refrained from revealing too much, only releasing bits of seemingly trivial information to stabilize their emotions. "My son, a martial Tao prodigy?" Lin Jianpain blinked and couldn't react for a long while. Shenzhen beside him felt the same. They knew what their son was like, didn't they? Deeper within the martial temple, several supreme elders gathered here once again. After personally taking Lin Yuan to the temple's highest class cultivation cave dwelling, they came here. Lin Chang, Father Lin Jianpain. Information about Lin Yuan appeared before the supreme elders. Even though Lin Yuan's martial talent and innate abilities left them unable to calm down for a long time, the most basic background investigation still needed to be done. Even if, in the view of the supreme elders, this background check didn't mean much, no matter what hidden dangers were in Lin Yuan's identity, they had decided to keep this unprecedented martial Tao prodigy in the martial temple at all costs. Looking at the current situation, he comes from a clean background, born and raised in Xianxia city. The second supreme elder was very satisfied. Certainly they had been prepared for the worst-case scenarios such as problems with Lin Yuan's background or some sort of enemy. No matter what, the martial temple would protect him. But without these complications, all the better. What should we do next? The third supreme elder asked. The martial temple, as the place of martial Tao heritage, already had a complete process for cultivating disciples. When to do what, which techniques to practice and so on. All were provided with detailed guidance. However, given the talent displayed by Lin Yuan, the several supreme elders felt that following the past few sets of disciple cultivation procedures was simply a waste. Let's do this. We few old fellows will personally teach him, how about that? The great supreme elder suddenly spoke up. Personally teach him? No problem. I too want to see what differentiates a martial Tao prodigy who makes all 7 statues shine with 120% of their brilliance. The supreme elders readily agreed. In a high-grade cultivation cave dwelling, Lin Yuan was seated cross-legged in this place. The cultivation environment here is very suitable for martial Tao cultivators. Lin Yuan felt it for a while, and a smile appeared on his face. Xianxia city wasn't established above a spirit vein, hence the spiritual energy wasn't abundant, but there was a kind of vitality that's extremely nourishing for martial Tao cultivators. Especially in this cave dwelling, If Lin Yuan were to let himself absorb freely, not to mention restoring to the 8th layer, at least reaching the 7th rank would be as easy as turning his hand over, and definitely wouldn't take more than 50 years. Choosing to have my consciousness come directly to the spirit realm seems to have been the right decision. The cultivation environment of this world far surpasses that of the lower realms of the central divine continent, Lin Yuan thought to himself. Indeed, Lin Yuan could also have his consciousness descend to the lower realms in the central divine continent and then take over Jun Wuji's body, instantly gaining 7th rank strength, and then ascend to the higher realms. But there are significant disadvantages to that approach, namely that Jun Wuji's body, the domain he established at the 7th rank, was an erroneous one, far inferior to the perfected perfect 7th stage in the main world. Furthermore, ascending to the spirit realm through the ascension platform still involves risks, and breaking through space, smuggling oneself directly from the void into the spirit realm similarly involves risks. After much deliberation, directly descending consciousness to the spirit realm was the best choice. Although starting off lower, now with the help of the martial temple, recovering to the 8th layer wouldn't take long. The next day, the Great Supreme Elder took the initiative to visit Lin Yuan. "How do you feel?" the Great Supreme Elder asked kindly. Other disciples, even core disciples, needed to stay at the martial academy and undergo various tests when they joined the martial temple. But of course, Lin Yuan didn't need to do those things as the Supreme Elders themselves were to be his masters. Now that the Great Supreme Elder had come over, he planned to personally instruct Lin Yuan and give him a complete impression of the martial Tao cultivation system. Not bad. Lin Yuan nodded. The environment here was indeed quite good. Have you looked at those books? The Great Supreme Elder glanced at a bookshelf not far away, filled with jade slips that held a vast amount of information related to martial Tao. One only needed to press a jade slip against their forehead to read it. Yes, Lin Yuan said. The information in those jade slips had helped Lin Yuan roughly familiarize himself with the current martial Tao. Then tell me, what have you learned? The Great Supreme Elder intentionally tested Lin Yuan and asked. The explanation of martial Tao is somewhat one-sided, Lin Yuan said. Oh, one-sided? The Great Supreme Elder became interested. Martial Tao should encompass all things to grow, all things to thrive, that is the essence of martial Tao, Lin Yuan stated calmly. All things to grow, all things to thrive? An intrigued light flickered in the eyes of the Great Supreme Elder. Of all the paths in the spirit realm, aside from the exalted immortal path, who dared to comment on their path in such a manner? What do you mean by all things to grow? The Great Supreme Elder continued to inquire. Time and space, yin and yang, the 5 elements. Lin Yuan's pace of speech didn't fluctuate and he spoke in a deliberate and measured manner. More than an hour later, the Great Supreme Elder walked out of the cave dwelling looking somewhat dazed. How did it go? How did it go? How did the teaching go? What's his understanding of martial Tao like? The Supreme Elders were quite curious. His understanding of martial Tao? The Great Supreme Elder looked around at his fellow elders and finally, with an indescribable tone, said, "He is born for martial Tao." Chapter 453 Centuries of Time, subscribe please. Born for martial Tao? Several Supreme Elders were stunned. This evaluation could not be considered anything less than high. Placed within the realm of the immortal path, it denoted a dazzlingly brilliant, unparalleled genius, an immortal king's seed. Though martial Tao was not as esteemed as the immortal path, this acclaim was not something everyone could bear. Do you not believe it? The Great Supreme Elder glanced at them and sighed softly. Honestly, before he taught Lin Yuan, he also did not believe there was any martial Tao cultivator in the world who could be described thus. But afterward, the Great Supreme Elder truly realized, Lin Yuan was indeed such a person. Wait till tomorrow after you have taught him, then you will understand. The Great Supreme Elder shook his head slightly and strode away. In the following time, several Supreme Elders of the martial temple tried in succession to teach Lin Yuan. But the outcomes often left a sour taste as they posed questions to Lin Yuan, who would ponder briefly before providing answers. However, whenever Lin Yuan casually returned a question, the Supreme Elders would think for a long time, struck dumb without an explanation, and ultimately it was Lin Yuan who provided the answers. As for his progression in martial Tao cultivation, Lin Yuan made leaps and bounds, with the martial temple providing a full array of resources. His advancement rate was terrifying. In less than a year, he had traversed a path that ordinary martial Tao geniuses might not cover in decades. What the Supreme Elders did not know was that the cultivation speed showcased by Lin Yuan was deliberately shown. As for his true cultivation speed, it was far more frightening than what they could imagine. Martial Temple Guest Hall. Lin Yuan sat casually. Lin Jianpain and Shenzhen were visibly exhilarated. Chang'er, you don't know the clan head of the Zhao family. He was so nice to me, all because of you, Chang'er. Lin Jianpain looked at his son with an indescribable happiness. In his life, the most correct decision was to let Lin Yuan experience the martial ancestor's divine radiance. Though till this day he did not know what position Lin Yuan held in the martial temple, or what level of disciple he had become after joining. But as time passed, under Lin Yuan's casual guidance, the martial temple showed subtle signs of closeness to the Lin family. This alerted the major families and powers in Xianxia city. Those who previously looked down upon the Lin family now treated them well. Is that so? Lin Yuan said with a smile. Currently, his status in the martial temple was quite special. Not a disciple, but personally taught by several supreme elders of the martial temple. Theoretically, Lin Yuan's seniority and qualification should be considered on par with this generation's lord of the martial temple. With just a word from Lin Yuan, even the lord of the martial temple would not dare to object. The family chatted for a while. Then Shenzhen pulled Lin Jianpain to get up and leave. Chang'er, you must take good care of yourself in the martial temple. Shenzhen still felt a pang of heartache for Lin Yuan. She had heard that the competition within the martial temple was fierce. Even those core disciples had to pay a huge price to obtain what they wanted. Now that her son could influence the martial temple, the price he must have paid was imaginable. Don't worry, I am doing quite well inside, Lin Yuan said. Even as Lin Yuan said this, Shenzhen's eyes turned redder, feeling that Lin Yuan was just putting on a brave front. After seeing off his parents, Lin Yuan then returned to his cultivation cave dwelling. This world, after developing for tens of thousands of years, has explored many different pathways for martial Tao, Lin Yuan fell into thought. Joining the martial temple for nearly half a year, besides his daily cultivation to restore his strength, he observed the changes in the current martial Tao cultivation system. Although Lin Yuan was the founder of martial Tao, initially he had only laid down the first rank chapter to the 7th rank chapter. The 7th rank chapter was only a beginning, and the initially established 7th rank chapter was hardly perfect. After returning to the main world, Lin Yuan created a satisfying 7th rank chapter. It's a pity so many years have passed, and yet no 8th layer part has emerged, Lin Yuan thought silently to himself. As far as Lin Yuan knew, the strongest in today's martial Tao were but 3 7th rank martial Tao. These 3 7th ranks, the strongest one named Li Qing, was originally Lin Yuan's direct disciple from the lower realms. As for the other 2, they were later generations of 7th rank who he taught after ascending to the spirit realm. Of the 3 7th ranks, Li Qing was at the 7th rank peak, while the other 2 hovered in the mid to late 7th rank. 7th rank peak. Lin Yuan looked thoughtful. The path of martial Tao that Li Qing followed was what Lin Yuan had initially left behind. Although it was just the beginning of the 7th rank, Lin Yuan's final assumptions for the continuation of the 7th rank made it not too difficult for Li Qing to reach the 7th rank peak. It was undoubtedly easier than creating the 7th rank chapter from nothing. Of course, since Lin Yuan's originally left behind 7th rank chapter was not perfect, it almost made it impossible for Li Qing to step into the 8th rank. Even in the main world, the 8th rank was a very critical stage, with the 8th rank evolution path being a prerequisite for the major evolvers. That's also right. Though this world has passed tens of thousands of years, the martial Tao is ultimately not considered a strong path, without enough beings investing in it, and with the 7th rank chapter having taken a detour, it is not surprising that no 8th rank part emerged, Lin Yuan thought silently to himself. He could step into the 8th rank because his 7th rank was almost perfect, combined with against heaven's understanding, as well as the numerous cultivation conditions in the main world, and ultimately the countless evolution paths within the body of a supreme being. With so many factors enhancing him, it enabled Lin Yuan to achieve what he has achieved today. As for the martial Tao of the spirit realm, if Lin Yuan had not had a consciousness descent this time, it would probably take another 1,000,000 years without any martial Tao cultivator stepping into the 8th rank. Chapter 454 Centuries of Time. Subscribe please. Undersuhu. The 8th stage of martial arts should correspond to the Transcendence Tribulation stage in the Immortal Cultivation system, right? Lin Yuan thought of the Immortal Cultivation system. The Transcendence Tribulation stage is also known as the Immortal King. Tribulation Transcending Celestial King. Even when surveying the 3,000 Tao provinces of the spirit realm, the Tribulation Transcending Celestial King stands at the absolute summit. To step into the Transcendence Tribulation stage, one must transcend both the heart demon tribulation and the bodily tribulation. Only then can one break through to the Transcendence Tribulation stage and assume the position of an Immortal King. This is similar to the need to overcome the heart demon tribulation when advancing from the 7th rank to the 8th rank. Lin Yuan pondered in his heart. The difference is that advancing from the 7th rank to the 8th rank only requires overcoming the heart demon tribulation, whereas the true immortals of Tao integration in the spirit realm must also face an additional bodily tribulation. Tribulation Transcending Celestial Kings, wielding the power of creation, overlooking the spirit realm, and even capable of divine travel through hundreds of thousands of lower realms? Lin Yuan thought of what he had read about the Tribulation Transcending Celestial Kings. This information was collected by the Martial Temple. Although the Martial Tao cultivation system is different from the Immortal cultivation system, those who came later still hold the top-tier experts of Tao with awe. I wonder what the difference is between a Tribulation Transcending Celestial King and an 8th rank Evolver. Lin Yuan was curious. The cultivation system is different, so naturally, the abilities displayed at each stage are also different. If a Tribulation Transcending Celestial King corresponds to the 8th rank, that's only a rough equivalence in terms of combat power. As for the specific details and techniques, only a personal confrontation would tell. Power of creation? Lin Yuan stroked his chin. This power is the core strength of a Tribulation Transcending Celestial King, the greatest confidence for Immortal King-level powerhouses to overlook all beings. Is it another term for the power of the world or simply another type of energy? Do Tribulation Transcending Celestial Kings not have their own inner worlds at all? Lin Yuan's thoughts fluctuated. The most powerful method of the 8th rank Evolvers is the power of the world cultivated within their inner worlds. But as for the power of creation held by the Tribulation Transcending Celestial Kings, its true nature remains unknown. The Martial Temple's level is after all not high. It cannot gather detailed information about the Immortal King-level powerhouses. Deep within the Martial Temple, several Supreme Elders gathered together again. Chang'er's talent is too strong. We're unable to teach him any more. The second Supreme Elder was silent for a while before speaking the truth. They are all martial practitioners of the 6th stage Martial Tao, equivalent to ancient saints of the Nether Refinement period. In the spirit realm, ancient saints of the Nether Refinement period can also dominate a region. At least within a city like Xianxia City, a battle prowess of the ancient saints level is considered top-notch. But facing Lin Yuan, they all felt a bit intimidated. Lin Yuan's learning capability and cultivation speed are too fast. So fast that it made them doubt how they had lived through the years. So what should we do? The third Supreme Elder asked. Now the only option is to ask the 3 ancestors for guidance. Perhaps only the 3 ancestors are qualified to teach Chang'er. The great Supreme Elder spoke. The 3 ancestors? The remaining Supreme Elders were inwardly startled. The 3 ancestors here naturally refer to the 3 7th-stage Martial Tao strong practitioners, the founders of the Martial Temple. However, currently, these 3 7th-stage Martial Tao practitioners are all battling for the Dao Immortal sect. Dao Immortal sect has protected Xianxia City for many years, not only because a true immortal of considerable prominence within the sect negotiated an agreement with that mysterious martial ancestor, but also because of the merits the 3 ancestors had established for the Dao Immortal sect over the years. Now, it seems only the 3 ancestors can teach him. The third Supreme Elder sighed. Anyway, they didn't dare to continue teaching. Otherwise, they would undoubtedly risk damaging their own state of mind. It's too exaggerated. If they hadn't confirmed that Lin Chang's soul and body were perfectly integrated, they would suspect that Lin Chang might have been seized by some old monster. In the spirit realm, seizure is not an uncommon occurrence. I will contact the 3 ancestors right away. Seeing that the other Supreme Elders had no objections, the great Supreme Elder stood up and said, "The 3 ancestors are engaged in external battles. If there is no major issue, they are not to be disturbed, but the matter concerning Lin Yuan is considered a major issue by the Supreme Elders." Within the cave-dwelling Lin Yuan, in addition to cultivating, was also sensing the great Tao rules of the spirit realm. Taiyin rule. Lin Yuan's mind stirred, and streams of the extremely yin and pure power of Taiyin converged in the depths of his pupils, merging with the power of Taiyang to form the power of Taiji. I didn't expect that not long after arriving I would comprehend the Taiyin rule. Lin Yuan was in a good mood. Despite spending nearly 20 years in seclusion in the main world without comprehending the Taiyin rule, he had managed to grasp it not long after crossing over. However, my current strength is too weak to condense the rules. Otherwise, it would be interesting to see what will happen when the Taiyin rule merges with the Taiyang rule. Will it form a new rule? The Taiji rule? Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. The rules of the Great Tao are elusive. To condense a certain rule, one must first thoroughly understand it and second, possess a body and soul capable of carrying that rule. Of course, Lin Yuan wasn't able to condense the Taiyin rule just yet, but he could still use it. Once a certain rule is fully understood, even a mortal can, in every action, align with this rule and unleash a power that far exceeds their limits. This traversal does allow for the awakening of a new physical body divine ability. Lin Yuan seemed to think of something and his eyes lit up slightly. The 6th stage martial Tao chapter draws from the essence of body cultivation, enabling the condensation of divine physical body abilities that belong to a martial Tao cultivator. So far, Lin Yuan had condensed 2 physical body divine abilities. The first one is blood rebirth. The second is mountain moving. The former had brought tremendous help to Lin Yuan, even the opening of that mysterious gourd relied on the blood rebirth ability. Then there's that gourd. Lin Yuan's consciousness sank into the depths of his mind, looking at the towering and massive door to the myriad realms. If Lin Yuan wished, he could use a strand of world-breaking origin force at any time to bring over the mysterious gourd. But after some thought, Lin Yuan decided to wait a while more. His current strength was still too weak and the mysterious gourd was too precious. It would be better to wait until he had sufficient power to protect himself in this world before considering it. Cultivate, cultivate. Lin Yuan's thoughts converged and he started cultivating again. Although he was under the protection of the martial temple now and did not need to worry about safety, there were still many things waiting for Lin Yuan to do, and all these things required strength. On the edge of the Xinhuang domain, inside a palace, 3 figures were sitting cross-legged, their qi and blood circulating and faintly vibrating in all directions. The martial temple has sent me a message. The first figure on the left opened his eyes and spoke. The martial temple? Has something big happened? The first figure on the right also opened his eyes. They had long told the martial temple not to contact them lightly unless something significant happened. What's the matter? The figure in the middle opened her eyes and asked slowly. This figure was a stunningly beautiful woman, who was none other than Li Qing, the direct disciple Lin Yuan had once accepted. They say that the martial temple has received a once-in-an-age genius, who upon perceiving the martial ancestor's divine radiance, caused 7 divine statues to tremble, all aglow with 12-fold brilliance, the figure on the left explained. All 7 divine statues radiant with 12-fold brilliance? The tonality of the figure on the right wavered slightly. Even he had only managed to make 1 divine statue tremble and shine with 12-fold brilliance back in his day. Indeed a once-in-an-age genius. Li Qing nodded and said, "What does the martial temple want us to do?" "They want one of us to go back and personally instruct this genius," the figure on the left said. "Go back one of us?" Li Qing frowned slightly. "The battle with the other great realms is at a critical moment. We cannot leave, not even our primordial spirits can depart. In that case, reply to the martial temple that in 100 years, I will personally return to guide this once-in-an-age genius," Li Qing said. She valued martial arts geniuses highly. Perhaps influenced by Lin Yuan in the past, Li Qing was willing to offer each martial Tao cultivator the chance to advance further. 100 years? Yes, in 100 years the conflict will mostly cease, and by then, the 3 of us can return to see for ourselves. Let that once-in-an-age genius cultivate on their own for these 100 years, and when we return later, we will personally guide them, the figure on the right said. No problem, the figure on the left nodded. 100 years was nothing. That once-in-an-age genius might just be beginning to comprehend the martial Tao. Their return would be just in time to provide guidance at a critical moment. Years passed by. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed since Lin Yuan arrived in this world. Chapter 455 Lin Yuan's Strength. Please subscribe. An underground world spanning tens of thousands of miles, with only Lin Yuan sitting cross-legged alone within it. The terrifying aura emanating from his body caused the space itself to distort slightly. 8th stage martial Tao has already reached the 2nd layer, Lin Yuan reined in his aura and nodded in satisfaction. The Immortal Path skill does indeed play a significant role in perfecting the 8th layer part. However, beginning from the 2nd layer of the 8th layer part, the difficulty of expansion skyrockets. But with Against Heaven's understanding, this is merely a matter of time and persistence. In Lin Yuan's conception, the 8th stage martial Tao consisted of 4 stages, similar to most evolution paths of the main world's 8th layer part. But for the specific content of cultivation, Lin Yuan had pushed it to the utmost limit that he could possibly achieve at present. If it were just to create an ordinary 8th rank evolutionary path, there would be no need to expend so much effort. However, the 8th stage martial Tao was a critical phase in Lin Yuan's cultivation journey, so naturally he couldn't skimp on effort. My current realm has also surged into the 2nd layer of the 8th rank, he said. Had it not been for his encounter with the spirit realm's immortal cultivation system and other cultivation systems, which allowed Lin Yuan to reshape the martial path evolutionary path multiple times, it would have probably taken him several more decades to reach this level. However, when I returned to the 8th rank, I did not re-experience the heart demon tribulation, nor the bodily tribulation, required by a tribulation transcending celestial king, Lin Yuan said as he stroked his chin, deep in thought. Lin Yuan had a guess about why the bodily tribulation hadn't descended. This type of tribulation was meant for immortal path cultivators. Although Lin Yuan drew on numerous essences from the immortal cultivation system, his foundation still lay in the martial path evolutionary path, thus he didn't need to face the bodily tribulation common to immortal path cultivators. As for the heart demon tribulation, Lin Yuan felt that his spirit will had already undergone transformation and likewise didn't need to experience it again. I've been residing for over 900 years and only 100 years have passed, so I still have ample time to perfect the next 3 stages of the 8th layer part, he said. Lin Yuan was confident about this. Once the 8th layer part is perfected, the martial path evolutionary path will transform into an 8th rank evolutionary path which I reckon could hold its own amidst all of humanity's 8th rank evolutionary paths throughout history. Lin Yuan stood up and exited the underground world to surface above ground. In a battle between the strong, moments can determine victory or defeat, let alone 10 breaths? And with the physical strength, vital energy, soul, and spirit will all augmenting tenfold together, the impact on strength is definitely far more complex than just a simple tenfold increase. Owning such a divine skill, even an ordinary 8th rank peak evolver, could challenge the unbeatable 8th rankers. Of course, this is just within the duration of the divine skill's activation, but it's still unimaginable, akin to a substitute for cosmic force. What's more crucial is that the strengthening divine skill will become increasingly significant as one's power grows. An 8th rank peak when utilizing this divine skill can match an unbeatable 8th ranker within 10 breaths. But what about a 9th rank evolver? For the following period, apart from perfecting the martial path evolutionary path, my primary task is to thoroughly comprehend this divine skill and condense a divine ability imprint, Lin Yuan planned in his heart. Only by condensing a divine ability imprint could he carry this divine skill back to the main world. Lin Yuan remembered that it took him a full 50 years to fully comprehend the blood rebirth divine ability imprint. Chapter 456 Lin Yuan's Strength, please subscribe. _2 As for the divine skill mountain moving, Lin Yuan had too little time in the main world to fully comprehend the divine ability imprint of mountain moving. He returned to the martial temple. Before long, a few supreme elders made their way over. Elder, Lin Yuan nodded slightly. Over the past century, the supreme elders of the martial temple had treated Lin Yuan quite well, nurturing him almost like the future of the martial temple. If it hadn't been for the support of the martial temple in the early stages, Lin Yuan would have definitely reached this point today, but it would have taken a lot more time. Cultivators of the immortal path need resources, and so do martial Dao cultivators. Especially at the 6th and 7th ranks, when opening up an inner world, the consumption of resources is as vast as mountains and seas. Chang'er, here is the immortal path skill you asked for. The great supreme elder took out several jade slips, looking at Lin Yuan, his gaze uncontrollably showing a trace of trepidation. As early as 70 or 80 years ago the supreme elders, had already found Lin Yuan unfathomable. Lin Yuan had browsed through all the countless martial Tao scriptures recorded in the martial temple, and although they hadn't directly sparred in strength, every close contact with Lin Yuan gave them an inexplicable feeling of palpitation. This sensation had disappeared 60 years ago, but they had no intention of underestimating Lin Yuan. They just felt that Lin Yuan might have achieved the level of returning to the original purity. This was what several elders at the 7th stage martial Tao thought. Unless they deliberately demonstrate their aura, they look no different from ordinary people. Supreme Jade Purity Immortal Scripture. This is the secret core skill of the Supreme Immortal sect? Lin Yuan became interested. In recent decades, Lin Yuan had asked the Supreme Elders to collect as many Immortal Path skills as possible. Although the Supreme Elders did not know what the purpose was for Lin Yuan, a martial path cultivator, to collect Immortal Path skills, Lin Yuan's displayed talent and divine abilities were too frightening for them to harbor any doubts. Lin Yuan quickly browsed through the Supreme Jade Purity Immortal Scripture and finally nodded slightly. Although it ends after the divinity transformation stage, the Supreme Immortal King, as a Supreme Immortal King that commands respect across 3,000 Dao provinces, has indeed created a scripture with value. Lin Yuan commented with a hint of admiration in his voice. Even among tribulation-transcending celestial kings, there are differences in strength, and the Supreme Immortal Kings are the peak powerhouses among those in the tribulation transcendent stage. Lin Yuan guessed that the Supreme Immortal Kings might correspond to the invincible at the 8th layer in the main world. The Supreme Immortal sect once intended to disseminate the Supreme Jade Purity Immortal Scripture and allowed other cultivators to practice this scripture, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to obtain it, said the Great Supreme Elder, nodding his head. The purpose of the Supreme Immortal sect's move was easy to guess. They were simply scouting for talents across 3,000 Dao provinces suited to cultivate the Supreme Jade Purity Immortal Scripture. The scriptures that the Supreme Immortal sect spread only ranged from the Qi Cultivation chapter to the Mahayana chapter. Even if some idle Immortal Path cultivators were fortunate enough to begin practicing, the only way to delve further would be to head to the Supreme Clarity Immortal sect. Chang'er, the Great Supreme Elder, hesitated for a moment before he finally asked, "What is your current realm, the 7th stage martial Tao?" The Great Supreme Elder asked cautiously. In a mere 100 years, reaching the 7th stage of martial arts would have been utterly unbelievable to the Great Supreme Elder in the past. But Lin Yuan's performance in the past century caused the Supreme Elders to entertain such a thought. Being at the 6th rank themselves and feeling a sense of pressure from him, it was highly probable that Lin Yuan was at the 7th rank. My current realm? Lin Yuan smiled faintly. The other Supreme Elders, upon hearing this, instinctively pricked up their ears to listen. They too were curious about Lin Yuan's current strength. No. Lin Yuan shook his head. He had progressed beyond the 7th stage martial Tao 60 years ago. Not the 7th stage martial Tao? The Great Supreme Elder breathed a sigh of relief, feeling a complex mix of emotions. He hoped Lin Yuan was at the 7th stage martial Tao because that would mean the martial path evolutionary path had birthed another 7th rank ancestor, which would further expand the influence of the martial temple. But rationally, the Great Supreme Elder did not believe that, within merely 100 years, Lin Yuan could have reached the 7th rank, which seemed absolutely inconceivable. Now that Lin Yuan had confirmed it, the doubts in the hearts of the Supreme Elders were no more. From beginning to end, neither the Great Supreme Elder nor the other Supreme Elders had ever considered that Lin Yuan could be at the 8th stage of martial arts. Because that was simply a fantasy. Ever since the martial path evolutionary path came into existence, the strongest among them was at the 7th rank, stopping at the level of a true immortal on the immortal path. The 8th stage of martial arts? Even the legendary martial ancestor hadn't delved into that, let alone Lin Yuan, such a fledgling who had only practiced for 100 years. If not the 7th rank, then it must be the 6th rank. 100 years to reach the 6th rank in the martial temple since its establishment, such a cultivation speed can be called unrivaled. The Great Supreme Elder thought silently to himself. Over tens of thousands of years, countless martial Dao prodigies streaked across the sky, but there had never been one that entered the 6th rank within 100 years. The 6th rank of martial Dao corresponds with the level of an ancient saint of refinement void on the immortal path. To reach the level of an ancient saint of refinement void in 100 years, only those monstrous talents on the immortal path, the immortal king seeds, stand a chance of doing so. After the Supreme Elders left, Lin Yuan sat cross-legged in his cave dwelling. My current Dao strength. Lin Yuan began to examine himself with the help of many methods. Even without the amplification from an inner world spanning over 10 million li, Lin Yuan's combat power was approaching invincible at the 8th rank. If he used the divine skill strengthening within 10 breaths, Lin Yuan's combat power might even far exceed that of an invincible 8th rank. It's just, I wonder what the power of creation wielded by immortal king-level powerhouses is all about? Lin Yuan secretly thought to himself. After years of understanding, Lin Yuan roughly confirmed that tribulation-transcending celestial kings probably did not possess an inner world. What they relied on was the power of creation they wielded. Ordinary immortals wielded portions of the power of creation's might, while supreme immortal kings wielded the complete power of creation. Unfortunately, there are no immortal king-level powerhouses in Dongyun Tao province. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. Even when considering the 3,000 Tao provinces, immortal king-level powerhouses were extremely rare, let alone having such powerhouses stationed in Dongyun Tao province. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would probably try his hand against 1 or 2 immortal kings. As for outside Dongyun Tao province, the distance was too far. Even though Lin Yuan's mastery of space rules allowed him to cover millions or tens of millions of li in one step, it would still take a substantial amount of time to reach the next Tao province. With the effort it took to travel that far, Lin Yuan might as well spend more time in secluded cultivation. As for tribulation-transcending celestial kings, even if he went to another province, whether he could find a tribulation-transcending celestial king was another matter. It's time to bring over that gourd, Lin Yuan thought to himself. Now that his strength was sufficient, at least within the bounds of Dongyun Tao province, he was invincible. Even if there were hidden tribulation-transcending celestial kings, it was likely that they couldn't defeat Lin Yuan. Therefore he currently had the power to protect that mysterious gourd. Thinking this, Lin Yuan's mind began to sink into the depths of his mind. Looking towards that majestic and vast door to the myriad realms. Crossing dimensions, crossing latitudes, beyond imagination. Even though he had observed the door to the myriad realms more than once, Lin Yuan still felt a sense of awe strike him. When he first became an evolver, Lin Yuan looked at the door to the myriad realms and felt only its magnificence and vastness, but now he saw this gate of light as if it were a colossal entity straddling boundless worlds. Through these 100 years, everything seems normal in the main world, nothing much has happened. Lin Yuan could faintly sense the situation on the side of his true body in the main world through the door to the myriad realms. Let's begin. With a thought, Lin Yuan expended a strand of world-breaking origin force to start transporting the mysterious gourd from the main world to this place. Swish swish. In the center of the door to the myriad realms, space fluctuations faintly emerged. These fluctuations were profound and remote, as if emanating endless mystery. Lin Yuan carefully felt it. This method of transporting items through dimensional latitudes far exceeded his current understanding. By observing a little longer, he might, with his against heaven's understanding, be able to comprehend something new. After a moment, the space fluctuations gradually subsided. A dusky yellow gourd slowly emerged. Landing into Lin Yuan's palm. You're tuning in to the Phantom Sword Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.